Dana, let Brianna have your wedding date. My mother said it across her dining room table while my sister stared at her plate, trying to look embarrassed. She wasn't. Brianna had already pulled up the Stonebridge Mill website on her phone. I could see the picture of the courtyard reflected in her water glass. "Mom," I said, "that isn't something I can just hand over." "Why not?" "Because it's my wedding date." Brenda, my mother, gave a tired little sigh. It was the sound she made whenever I forced her to explain something she thought I should already understand. "Brianna's heart is set on October 17th, she said. "You're organized. You can start over." My father kept cutting his pork chop. Brianna rubbed one finger around the edge of her napkin. Nobody laughed. That was when I understood they were serious. "My name is Dana Davidson, and I'm 32 years old. If you've ever been treated like the dependable one until your own needs became inconvenient, you'll understand why that sentence stopped me cold. Please like this video and subscribe. It helps more than you know." The date my mother wanted me to give away was October 17th, 2026. I had reserved it the year before Brianna was even engaged. My fiancé, Luke, proposed on a quiet Sunday morning in September. He'd planned to take me to a winery outside Herman, but it rained hard enough to flood part of the road. Instead, he made eggs in my kitchen, burned one side of the toast, and asked me while I was standing at the sink in socks. There was no photographer hiding behind a tree. Nobody jumped out from another room. He held out the ring and said, "I had a better speech in the car." I started laughing before I started crying. He looked worried. "Is that a yes?" "Yes," I said. "Obviously, yes." "We called my parents that afternoon," Mom answered on speaker. "Oh, finally," she said. "I was wondering how long he was going to make you wait." Luke looked at me. I shook my head slightly, telling him to let it go. Dad congratulated us. Then Brianna came into their kitchen and heard what was happening. "Wait, Dana got engaged?" "I did," I said. She screamed so loudly I pulled the phone away from my ear. Then she started asking about the ring. "What shape is it? How big is it? Send me a picture in natural light. Not under those yellow kitchen lights." That was Brianna. Even her excitement came with instructions. We sent the picture. Mom called back 10 minutes later to say the photo made the diamond look smaller than it probably was. Luke took my phone, placed it face down on the counter, and poured more coffee. "Are we going to be doing this the entire time?" he asked. "Probably." He sat across from me. "Then we need rules." At that point, I still thought rules meant things like not letting my mother choose the flowers. I'd spent most of adulthood fixing problems that started with Brianna saying, "I didn't think it would matter." In 2016, she signed a lease with 2 friends, changed her mind just before move-in, and left Mom and Dad trying to figure out what she owed. I found someone to take her room because I knew a woman from work who needed an apartment. When Brianna planned Dad's 60th birthday dinner, she forgot to confirm the restaurant. She called me 2 days before and said the manager had lost the reservation. The manager hadn't lost anything. Brianna had never called him back. I found another place, collected everyone's meal choices, and told Dad the change was because the new restaurant had a quieter room. When she volunteered to host Christmas, she bought decorations and forgot food. I drove to 3 stores on Christmas Eve while she arranged little gold trees across the mantel. Nobody called those things emergencies after I fixed them. Mom called me dependable. Dad said, "I don't know what we'd do without you." Brianna posted photographs and thanked everyone for making the day special. I knew the pattern. I just didn't think my wedding would be folded into it. Luke and I wanted something simple, but not tiny. We both liked Herman. His parents lived near Columbia, mine were outside St. Louis, and the drive was manageable for everyone. We visited 2 places that felt too formal, and one barn where the owner kept talking about extension cords. Stonebridge Mill was different. It sat at 214 Millstone Road, a little beyond the busiest part of town. The main building was old brick with tall windows and a wide stone patio facing the trees. It looked cared for without looking polished to death. The owner, Terry Nichols, met us near the front entrance. He was 54, wore a navy pullover, and carried a tablet with a crack across one corner. "You're early," he said. "I'm usually early," I told him. Luke said, "She means always." Terry smiled. "Good. I'm usually behind." He took us through the main room, the smaller room where people got ready, and the covered side terrace. It had rained that morning. The brick outside was dark and the air smelled like wet leaves. I stopped at the end of the patio. "This is it," I told Luke. He looked around. "You sure?" "I'm sure." We hadn't asked the price yet, so Luke laughed. Terry did too. "Let's sit down before anybody falls in love." We went into his office. It was narrow with 2 chairs facing a wooden desk. There were framed wedding photographs on one wall and a whiteboard covered in dates on the other. October 17th was available. Terry turned the tablet toward us and went through the reservation agreement. The deposit was $8,000. It was a lot of money for us. It was also money I had saved myself over several years. Luke offered to split it, but we'd already agreed he would cover other costs. Terry tapped a section near the bottom. "The reservation is non-transferable," he said. "The named client controls the date. That'll be you, Dana, since the payment is coming from your account." "What if Luke needs to change something?" I asked. "He can email about setup and vendors once you add him as a contact. A cancellation or change of client has to come from you in person. We've had relatives call pretending they have permission. We don't move a reservation based on a phone call." Luke leaned toward the screen. "That happens? You would be amazed what happens once 2 families start planning one wedding." I read that section twice. It seemed strict but sensible. "So nobody can change the date without Dana standing here?" Luke asked. "That's right," Terry said. "I need the named client in front of me." I signed on the tablet. Terry emailed a copy, processed the deposit, and gave us a printed card with the date and his contact information. On the drive home, Luke reached across the console and squeezed my knee. "October 17th, he said. "October 17th. For the first few months, planning went smoothly. We chose a caterer. I found a photographer whose pictures looked like actual people instead of perfume advertisements. Luke handled the music because my idea of a playlist was whatever had no shouting in it. Mom asked a lot of questions, but she wasn't openly difficult yet. She wanted to know why we weren't using the church hall where she and Dad had held their reception. She thought October might be cold. She didn't like the first invitation sample because the lettering was too small. Brianna wanted to be involved in everything. "Send me the dress options before you decide," she said. "I'm not sending anyone the dress options." "Why?" "Because I want to choose my own dress." She laughed like I was joking. "Obviously. I'm just helping." Then, early in 2026, Brianna got engaged. Her fiancé proposed during a weekend in Nashville. She sent the family group chat 19 pictures before telling us the date they wanted. At first, she said the following spring. Mom immediately started a second group chat without Luke. It was called Brie Wedding Planning. I stared at the name for a few seconds, then muted it. Brianna's engagement dinner was at my parents' house. Mom used the good serving dishes and ordered a cake with gold writing. When Luke and I got engaged, we'd brought takeout over and eaten from the containers because Mom said she hadn't had time to cook. I noticed the difference. I always noticed. Back then, I still worked hard at pretending I didn't. During dinner, Brianna complained that spring felt too far away. "I don't want to wait more than a year," she said. "It loses momentum." Luke looked at me over his glass. Dad asked, "What about summer?" "Too hot." "December?" I said. "Too Christmas." Mom put down her fork. "What about autumn?" Brianna glanced at me. It lasted maybe 1 second, but I saw it. "What?" I asked. "Nothing." "You looked at me." "I'm sitting across from you." That should have been the moment I started paying attention. Instead, I let it pass. A week later, Mom called while I was at the grocery store. "What was the name of your venue again?" "Stonebridge Mill. And that's in Herman?" "Yes." "Does it hold around 120 people?" I stopped beside the canned soup. "Why?" Brianna asked. "She likes the pictures. Tell her she should call Terry and ask what dates are open." Mom went quiet. Then she said, "You don't have to sound territorial." I answered the question. "It's just a venue, Dana." That bothered me, but I didn't push it. I finished shopping and went home. 2 days after that, Brianna sent me a screenshot from Stonebridge Mill's website. The photograph showed the patio where I'd told Luke I was sure. "This place is literally perfect," she wrote. I replied, "Yes, that's why we booked it." She sent a laughing face. Then she wrote, "I should have gotten engaged first." I didn't answer. For the next 3 weeks, Mom kept finding reasons to mention how flexible Luke and I were. She said our photographer probably had other weekends open. She asked whether I'd considered a winter wedding. Dad wanted to know how much money we would lose if we changed venues. Each question came separately. If they'd asked everything at once, I would have understood sooner. Luke did. We were addressing sample invitations at my kitchen table when he set down his pen. "Your family wants our date." "They haven't said that." "Your dad asked about the deposit. He asks about money. Your mother sent you 3 winter centerpiece pictures. She sends me things all day." "Dana." I looked at him. He didn't say anything else. The family dinner happened the following Sunday. Mom said it was just a normal dinner. Brianna was already there when we arrived. Dad poured drinks, and everyone talked around the subject until the plates were nearly empty. Then Mom said, "Dana, let Brianna have your wedding date." That was the moment I opened with, and even after the strange phone calls, I wasn't ready for how casually she said it. Luke stopped eating. Brianna kept her eyes on her plate. I asked, "What date are you telling people?" Brianna looked up. "We haven't made an official announcement." "That wasn't my question," Mom cut in. "She likes October 17th. It isn't available." "It could be," Brianna said quietly. I turned to her. "You contacted Stonebridge?" "No." "Then why do you think it could be available?" She looked at Mom. There it was. The first useful answer I'd gotten all night. This wasn't a wish Brianna had mentioned over dinner. They had discussed my reservation before I arrived. They had worked out what I was supposed to do. Dad pushed his plate away. "Nobody's trying to take anything from you," he said. "You're asking for my date. You could choose another one. So could Brianna." Mom frowned. "Her plans are built around autumn. My plans are built around the reservation I paid for." Brianna's face changed then. The soft, uncomfortable look disappeared. "You've always said the people matter more than the details." "They do." "Then why are you being like this?" I reached into my bag and took out the printed Stonebridge card I'd been carrying between my planner pages. I placed it on the table, though nobody had asked to see it. October 17th was printed in dark green beneath my name. Mom looked at the card and then at me. "You're really going to choose a venue over your sister?" I slid the card back into my bag. "No," I said. "I'm choosing not to give Brianna my wedding." Nobody spoke. My hands were shaking under the table, so I folded them in my lap. Then I looked directly at Brianna. "You need to pick another date." Brianna blinked at me. "Seriously?" "Yes." Mom leaned back in her chair. "You don't need to make a decision tonight. I already made it. You're upset. I'm not confused." Dad stood and started collecting plates. He picked up his own, then looked at me like he expected me to take the rest. I did. That's the part I remember most clearly. I had just refused the biggest demand they'd ever made of me, and I still started clearing their table. I carried Mom's plate into the kitchen. Luke followed with the water glasses. "You don't have to help clean up," he said quietly. "It'll take 5 minutes." Dana. I put the plate beside the sink. Through the doorway, I heard Mom say something to Brianna. Her voice was low, but the tone was comforting. Nobody was comforting me. Somehow, I was still the one standing at the sink with my sleeves pushed up. Luke set down the glasses. "Get your coat," he said. I looked at the plates. He touched my arm. "They can wash 4 plates." I dried my hands and walked back into the dining room. Mom looked up. "You're leaving?" "Yes. We haven't finished talking. There's nothing else to discuss tonight." Brianna folded her arms. "So you're just walking out?" "I'm going home." "You know what I mean." I did know. In our family, leaving before a problem was settled meant I wasn't available to settle it. Dad followed us to the front hall. "Dana, nobody wants this to turn into a big thing. Then don't turn it into one." He lowered his voice. "Your mother put a lot of work into tonight." I looked past him toward the dining room. Mom and Brianna were still sitting at the table. The dirty plates were in the kitchen. "I brought the dessert," I said. Dad looked confused. I had picked up the pie Mom asked for. I'd also brought the rolls because she forgot them at the store. Neither thing mattered, except that I'd done them automatically. Luke held my coat open. I put it on. Dad said, "Call your mother tomorrow." She was 10 feet away. I looked at him for a moment, then opened the door. The drive home took about 40 minutes. For the first 10, neither of us spoke. Luke kept both hands on the steering wheel. I watched dark storefronts pass outside the window. Finally, he said, "How long did they know?" "I don't know. They'd planned that conversation." "Yes." "Your sister barely said anything." "That's normal." He glanced at me. "Is it?" "She waits for Mom to make the argument. Then if it goes badly, she can say it wasn't her idea." Luke nodded once. I reached into my bag and checked my phone. There were no messages. I told myself I was relieved. A few minutes later, I checked again. Luke saw me. "Who are you waiting to hear from?" "No one." He let that sit. When we reached my apartment, I carried my bag inside and went straight to the kitchen. The sample invitations were still spread across the table. One had October 17th printed in pale gray near the bottom. I picked it up and stared at it. Luke hung his jacket over a chair. "Are you thinking about changing the date?" "No." You hesitated. "I'm thinking about what happens if I don't." He sat down across from me. "We get married when we planned." "That's not what I mean, I know." I put the invitation down. Mom could make silence feel like a closed door. She wouldn't yell. She'd stop calling. She'd answer questions with one word. Then Dad would contact me and explain how hurt she was. Eventually, I'd show up with something from the bakery she liked, or I'd offer to help with a task. Nobody would mention the original problem again. That had always counted as peace. Luke asked, "Do you want me to say what I think?" "Not yet." "All right. I know what you think. I know you do." I opened the family group chat. Mom had posted a picture of the cake from Brianna's engagement dinner the week before. Brianna had replied with 3 hearts. Dad had sent a thumbs up. I typed, "We got home safely." Mom reacted to the message with a check mark. Not a heart, not even good. A check mark. I put my phone face down. The next morning, she called at 8:15 while I was making coffee. I watched her name flash until the 4th ring before answering. "Hi, Mom. Are you at work?" "Not yet. I didn't sleep. I turned off the coffee maker. I'm sorry to hear that. I keep thinking about how you left. You asked for my wedding date. We were trying to have a conversation. You didn't ask what I thought. You told me what to do. I was trying to find a solution that works for everyone. It doesn't work for me." She went quiet. I poured coffee into a mug and waited. Mom said, "Brianna has had a difficult year." I didn't know what she meant. Brianna had changed jobs, but she liked the new one. Her rent had gone up. So had mine. She'd had an argument with a friend from college. None of that explained why she needed my wedding reservation. "What does that have to do with October?" I asked. "She needs something to look forward to. She has a wedding to look forward to. You know what I'm saying." "No, I don't." Mom breathed out slowly. "You've always been better at adjusting." There it was. She said it like a compliment. I sat down at the kitchen table. "Why does Brianna want that exact date?" "She likes the season. There are other days in autumn. Stonebridge is booked." "For every date?" "For the ones that would work." "How do you know?" Another pause. Mom said. Brianna looked. That was more information than they'd given me at dinner. "When did she contact them?" "I don't know if she contacted anyone." She checked the website. "The website doesn't show availability." "Well, maybe she called. I'm not involved in every little detail. She was involved enough to lose sleep over my refusal." I asked, "Did Brianna tell you she had already made plans for my date?" "No." "Did she tell anyone else?" "You're making this sound underhanded. I'm asking a question." "Then ask your sister." I did. She wouldn't answer. Mom's voice tightened. She was caught off guard. She was sitting there waiting for you to tell me. That's unfair. I looked down at the sample invitation. What do you want from me right now? I want you to think about it without Luke influencing you. I almost laughed. Luke didn't choose the date. He was very quick to pull you out of the house. He saw me washing your dishes after you asked me to cancel my plans. Nobody asked you to wash anything. That was true. Nobody had to ask. I pressed my thumb against the rim of the mug. I'm not changing the reservation. You've made that clear. Then why are we still talking about it? Because families don't just say no and walk away. I thought about all the times Brianna had done exactly that. I said, I have to get ready for work. Mom ended the call without saying goodbye. I sat there another minute. Then I turned the coffee maker back on because the first cup had already gone cold. Dad called during lunch. I was eating soup at my desk. When his name appeared, I knew Mom had sent him. Hey, Dad, got a minute? Not really. This won't take long. It took him almost 3 minutes to get to the point. He asked about work. He asked whether Luke's car was still making a noise. Then he cleared his throat. Your mother is pretty torn up. I spoke to her this morning. She feels like you shut her out. I answered her. She thinks you're angry. I am angry. Dad became quiet. That wasn't how I usually responded. Normally, I would soften it. I would say I was tired or stressed. I would give him a smaller feeling he could carry back to Mom. This time, I didn't. He said, Brianna thinks you don't want her to have a nice wedding. That isn't true. Maybe you could call her. What would that accomplish? You two could work something out. She can choose another date. Dana. I moved my soup away. Has anyone asked her to do that? She knows it's an option. That's not what I asked. Dad sighed. You know how your sister gets once she has her mind set. Yes. She digs in. So everyone comes to me. With Brianna, pushing makes it worse. He said it without thinking. I could tell because he went silent immediately afterward. For once, my father had given me a straight answer. They pressured me because they believed I would eventually cooperate. They protected Brianna because they believed she wouldn't. I leaned back in my chair. Do you hear yourself? I'm just being practical. No. You're telling me that saying no works for Brianna. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. Don't twist my words. I'm not. He lowered his voice. I don't want to argue while you're at work. Then stop calling me at work to argue. Dad was silent again. I'd never spoken to him that way. My heart was beating hard enough to make my face feel hot, but my voice stayed level. He said, You should think about what this is doing to the family. I will. I ended the call first. For the rest of lunch, I couldn't eat. Getting one honest sentence out of Dad should have made me feel better. Instead, it made the whole arrangement harder to ignore. They knew Brianna was difficult. They had built their decisions around it. Every time I made things easier, I proved their system worked. That evening, I opened the cabinet above my refrigerator and pulled down a blue ceramic bowl Mom had given me when I moved into the apartment. It had belonged to my grandmother. She used to fill it with wrapped mints and keep it beside her telephone. When Mom gave it to me, she said, You're the one who takes care of things. I had carried that sentence around like proof that she saw me. Standing in my kitchen, I heard it differently. The next several days were quiet. Mom didn't call. Dad sent one message asking whether I'd reconsidered. I replied, no. Brianna didn't contact me at all. By Friday, I was checking my phone more often than I wanted to admit. I'd open the group chat, see nothing new, and close it again. Once, I typed a message asking if everyone wanted to come over Sunday. I deleted it before sending. Luke came by after work with Thai food. He set the containers on the counter and watched me move my phone away from the stove. You can call her, he said. I don't want to. You keep looking at the phone. I can want Mom to call without wanting to apologize. I know. I handed him 2 plates. He asked, What usually happens after you and your mother disagree? I call her. Even if she caused it, we don't really decide who caused it. What do? I thought about it. I give her a reason to talk to me. I ask for a recipe. I tell her something about work. Sometimes I offer to come by. And then She acts normal. Does she apologize? I opened a container of noodles. No. Luke took the serving spoon from my hand before I dropped it. I sat at the table. I always thought I was choosing to let things go, I said. Maybe sometimes you were. And the other times? You were afraid they'd leave the door closed. I looked toward the blue bowl above the refrigerator. He was right, which irritated me more than if he'd misunderstood. Being useful was how I stayed close to my family. Mom trusted me with grocery lists, appointment times, passwords, addresses, and every plan that needed fixing. Dad called me when a bill looked strange or a form didn't make sense. Brianna called whenever she needed a favor that sounded too small to refuse. I'd mistaken access for respect. Saturday morning, Mom finally sent a message. Are you coming by today? There was no greeting, no mention of the calls. I typed, did we have plans? She replied, I thought you might help me move the folding tables back into the basement. The tables had been upstairs since Brianna's engagement dinner. Dad could move them. Brianna was at the house most Saturdays. Mom had waited for me. I stared at the message. A week earlier, I would have driven over. I would have brought coffee. Mom would have talked about something ordinary while I carried the tables with Dad. By the time I left, we would have been speaking again, and the wedding question would still be hanging there, untouched. I typed, I can't today. Mom replied almost immediately, fine. I put the phone down before I could explain. The guilt arrived anyway. It followed me while I changed the sheets, ran the vacuum, and went to the hardware store with Luke. I kept imagining Dad struggling with the tables. He wasn't struggling. They weren't that heavy. On Sunday afternoon, Brianna finally sent a message to the family group. It was a photograph of 2 cream-colored boxes stacked on Mom's dining room table. A gold label on the top box read, Save the Dates. Brianna wrote, They came early and they're perfect. Mom reacted with a heart. Dad sent, Looks great. I held the phone closer, trying to see whether the date was visible. It wasn't. Then Brianna added another message. Once Dana has a little more time, everything will be settled. Nobody asked what she meant. Mom reacted with another heart. I didn't respond. I took a screenshot, locked my phone, and left it on the table. For the first time, I understood that my family wasn't treating my answer as an answer. They were treating it as the beginning of the part where I needed to be managed. On Monday morning, I enlarged the photograph until the gold label turned blurry. The boxes were too deep for ordinary cards. There were probably envelopes underneath, maybe inserts, maybe a guest list. I texted Brianna directly, send me a picture of the actual card. She read it within a minute. 20 minutes passed before she replied. Why? Because you implied everything would be settled. It will be. Send me the card. She sent a photograph, but she'd placed her hand over the bottom half. I could see her name, her fiancé's name, and a line about celebrating with family and friends. The date was covered. I wrote, Move your hand. She sent a laughing face. Then she wrote, You're being intense. That was enough to tell me what was printed underneath her fingers. I called Mom. She answered with, I'm about to leave. I'll come move the tables tomorrow after work. Her tone changed immediately. Oh, all right. I can be there around 6. That's fine. Your dad will be home. Is Brianna keeping the save the dates at your house? Mom paused. For now, I want to see one. I'm not getting into this again. I'm not asking you to get into anything. I want to see what she printed. They're her invitations. They're save the dates. You know what I mean? Then there shouldn't be a problem. Mom said she had to go and ended the call. I sat at my desk with the blurred photograph open on my phone. I could have driven to Stonebridge and asked Terry whether anyone had contacted him. That would have been the obvious move. But I didn't think they could actually change the reservation. I remembered the agreement. I remembered Terry pointing to the named client condition. Nobody could move my date through a phone call. What bothered me was the certainty. Brianna wasn't acting like someone who wanted my weekend. She was acting like someone who already had it. After work on Tuesday, I drove to my parents' house. Luke offered to come with me, but I said no. If you're there, Mom will say she can't talk openly. Do you think she'll talk openly without me? No. Then why go alone? Because I want to see what they're doing when they think I can still be useful. He didn't like that answer. Neither did I. Mom's car was in the driveway when I arrived. Dad opened the garage door before I reached the front step. "Come around," he called. "We can take them through here." The folding tables were leaning against the wall beside the kitchen door. Dad had already carried them that far. I stood there looking at them. He could have moved them alone. He'd been waiting because Mom wanted me to come back into the routine. Dad picked up one end of the first table. "You got it?" "Yes." We carried it down the basement stairs. The stairwell was narrow, so I had to walk backward. Dad warned me about the last step, even though I'd used those stairs most of my life. At the bottom, we slid the table against the wall. He said, "See? 2 minutes." I didn't answer. We carried the second table down. When we came back upstairs, Mom had poured iced tea into 3 glasses. They were sitting on the kitchen counter beside a plate of crackers and cheese. It looked like every visit I'd made after every disagreement. Mom handed me a glass. "Thank you for helping." "You're welcome." She smiled carefully. "How's work?" "Busy." "And Luke?" "He's fine." Dad took a cracker. Mom waited for me to give her more. Normally, I would have filled the silence. I'd tell her something harmless about the office, then ask about her week. Instead, I said, "Where are the cards?" Her smile disappeared. "Dana, I told you I wanted to see one. I thought maybe you'd come over and act like yourself." "I am acting like myself." "No, you're being cold." I put the glass down. "Mom, if those cards have my date on them, I need to know." Dad said, "Let's keep this calm." "It is calm." Mom folded her arms. "They're in the dining room." I walked out of the kitchen. The boxes were on the sideboard. They looked exactly like the photograph, except the top one had been opened. A stack of cream envelopes sat beside it. Some had addresses printed on the front. I recognized names. Mom's sister, 2 of Dad's cousins, Brianna's friends, people from her fiancé's family. There were stamps in a small plastic bag. I reached toward the box. Mom came in behind me. "Don't make a scene. I'm standing in a dining room. You know what I mean." I took out one card. The paper was thick, with gold leaves around the edges. Brianna's name was written across the top in a large script. Beneath it was her fiancé's name. Then I saw the date, October 17th, 2026. Below that, in smaller lettering, it said Stonebridge Mill, Hermann, Missouri. The full address was printed on an information insert, 214 Millstone Road. They hadn't left room to change the plan later. They had printed my venue. I turned the card toward Mom. "She doesn't have this reservation. She will." "No, she won't." Mom glanced toward the kitchen, where Dad was still eating crackers. "We talked about this." "You talked." I said no. "You said no while you were upset." "I'm still saying no." "Then why did you come over?" The question caught me off guard. "To see the card. You offered to help." "Yes." I thought that meant you were ready to be reasonable. I looked at the folding table marks on my hands. The metal edge had left a red line across my palm. I had known why she wanted me there. I'd come anyway because part of me still wanted the iced tea, the familiar kitchen, and the moment when Mom's face softened because I'd made myself useful again. That was the cost of being honest with myself. I couldn't blame the entire pattern on them. They had trained me to earn my place. I had kept showing up for the shifts. I set the card on the sideboard. When were these ordered? Mom looked away. Last week, before or after dinner? I don't remember. You remember? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Dad came into the dining room. What's going on? I held up the card. Did you know they printed my date and venue? He glanced at Mom before answering. I knew Brianna ordered something. Before dinner? Dad rubbed the side of his jaw. I don't know when she placed the order. The front door opened. Brianna called, "Hello?" Mom closed her eyes for a second. She hadn't told me Brianna was coming. Brianna walked into the dining room carrying a large paper shopping bag. She stopped when she saw the card in my hand. "What are you doing here?" I came to see this. She set the bag on a chair. You went through my stuff? The box is open on Mom's sideboard. You still shouldn't touch it. When did you order them? Brianna looked at Mom. I said, don't look at her. I'm asking you. Last Wednesday. Dinner had been Sunday. 4 days before Mom told me what I was expected to give up, Brianna had paid to print my wedding date on her cards. You ordered them before you asked me. I knew you'd make it difficult. That answer was so direct that Mom stepped in. She means she knew you'd need time. That isn't what she said. Brianna pulled the card from my hand. We got a discount if we ordered that week. So you used my date because the printer had a sale. No. I used the date because that's when we're getting married. Dad said, Brianna, nothing is final. She turned to him. Mom said it was. The room went quiet. Mom's face tightened. I said we would work it out. You said Dana always comes around. Mom looked at me. Brianna realized too late that she'd said more than she meant to. I asked, what exactly have you been promised? Nobody promised me anything. You just said Mom did. I said she told me you'd calm down. Did she tell you I agreed? Brianna picked up the stack of envelopes and straightened the edges against the sideboard. She said once you stopped making it about control, you'd see that it makes more sense for me. Why does it make more sense for you? She looked genuinely surprised that I needed an explanation. Because I want a bigger wedding. Stonebridge has the same capacity no matter which sister uses it. You know what I mean? No, I don't. She pushed the envelopes back into the box. My fiancé's family is excited. People are coming from out of state. We've already talked to vendors. That was new. What vendors? Why? Because you don't have a venue. I don't have to give you my planning details. You printed my venue on a card and put it in front of me. Mom stepped between us, not physically, but with her voice. This is exactly why I didn't want you seeing them. I stared at her. You didn't want me seeing them because you knew they proved Brianna had decided before dinner. She made a tentative plan. She printed it. Paper can be reprinted, then reprint it. Brianna laughed once. There was no humor in it. I'm not throwing away hundreds of dollars because you need to prove a point. I paid $8,000 to reserve Stonebridge, and you won't lose it. Dad spoke before I could. Maybe there's a way to apply Dana's deposit to another date. I turned to him. Terry said the reservation is non-transferable. Well, businesses make exceptions, not without me. Mom's expression changed slightly. It wasn't fear, it was impatience, like I was making a simple task take longer than necessary. She said, "You're assuming Terry won't understand." My first thought was that she'd already called him. "Have you spoken to Terry?" No. The answer came too quickly. "Has Brianna?" Brianna folded the box closed. I called to ask about vendors. "What did you tell him?" "I didn't talk to the owner." "Who did you talk to?" I left a message. Someone called back and gave me general information. Stonebridge was small. Terry handled most calls himself, but he sometimes used an answering service when events were running. "What date did you give them?" Brianna shrugged. I asked general questions. "Did you say you were getting married there?" Mom said, "This is an interrogation." I kept looking at Brianna. She said, "I said my family had a reservation." That was technically true. It was also deliberately misleading. "Did they confirm your name?" "I don't remember." "You remember every color option on those cards. Stop talking to me like I'm stupid." "I don't think you're stupid." She picked up the top box. "Good. Then stop acting like I don't know what I'm doing." She carried it into the kitchen. Mom grabbed the second box and followed her. Dad stayed in the dining room with me. I looked at the addressed envelopes left on the sideboard. "Are they mailing those?" He pressed his lips together. "I think that's the plan." "When?" Brianna mentioned tomorrow. I took out my phone and photographed the card on the sideboard. I made sure the date, venue name, and address were clear. Dad watched me. "What are you going to do with that?" "I don't know yet." "Don't put it online." "I'm not putting anything online." He lowered his voice. "Your mother's trying to keep everybody together." "No. She's trying to make me cooperate before anyone notices what Brianna did. Dad looked toward the kitchen. I asked, "Did you believe I'd agree?" He didn't answer. That was an answer, too. Mom came back into the room. "I think you should go." "All right." She seemed startled that I didn't argue. I picked up my bag. At the front door, I turned around. "Do not mail cards with my date." Mom's mouth went tight. "You don't give orders in my house. I'm telling you the date isn't Brianna's. Then maybe you should think about how embarrassing this will be for her." I am thinking about it. I left without hugging either of them. In my car, I opened the photograph I'd taken. It was clear enough to read every line. My deliberate move had worked. I knew when the cards were ordered. I knew what was printed. I knew Brianna had already approached vendors while calling my reservation a family reservation. What I didn't know was how many people had heard her version, or why Mom sounded so certain that Stonebridge would ignore its own rule. I called Luke before pulling out of the driveway. "They printed the venue," I said. He was silent for a second. "Not just the date, the venue and the address. They're mailing them tomorrow. Did you tell them not to?" "Yes. Will they listen?" I looked back at the house. Through the dining room window, I could see Mom gathering the remaining envelopes. "No," I said. "I don't think they will." Luke said, "Call Terry tonight. He might be at an event. Send an email." I started the car. If I contact him now, it becomes real. It became real when they printed his address. I knew he was right. I also knew Terry's office was probably closed, and I didn't want to leave a nervous message that wandered through every detail. "I'll call in the morning," I said. Luke didn't argue. "Call before your mother does anything else." I drove home with the photograph open on my phone at every red light. When I reached my apartment, I put the Stonebridge agreement on the kitchen table. I kept a printed copy in a folder with the caterer information and insurance paperwork. The non-transferable section was exactly where I remembered it. The named client controls the reservation. Any cancellation, transfer request, or client change requires in-person authorization from the named client. There was no family exception. There was no line saying a mother could speak for her adult daughter if she believed the daughter would eventually agree. I set an alarm for 8:30 the next morning. At 8:12, Terry called me. I was standing in the office break room waiting for the coffee machine to finish making a cup that tasted faintly like cardboard. I nearly let the call go to voicemail because I didn't recognize the number. Then I saw Herman beneath it. "This is Dana." "Dana, it's Terry Nichols from Stonebridge Mill." His voice was calm, but he didn't sound casual. "Hi, Terry. Do you have a minute?" "Yes. I received a phone message regarding your reservation. I need to verify that you haven't authorized anyone to make a change." The coffee machine clicked off behind me. "Who called?" "A woman identifying herself as your mother." I put my hand on the counter. "What did she ask you to do?" "She asked that the client name be changed for October 17th. "To Brianna?" "Yes." I closed the break room door. I didn't authorize that. "That's what I assumed from the message. What did she say?" Terry paused. "I'd rather let you hear it directly." I preserved the voicemail because it was an irregular request. "Can you play it now?" "I can, but I'd also like you to come in and verify your instructions in person. Nothing has been changed. Your reservation is still active under your name." That was the first full breath I'd taken since he said my mother called. "When can I come?" "I'll be here until 6. I can get there around 5. "That works. Bring identification." "It's just a precaution. I understand." Before he ended the call, I asked, "Did you speak to my mother?" "No." She left the message after business hours. I listened to it this morning and called you first. Please don't call her back yet. I wasn't planning to discuss your reservation with her. Thank you. I stood in the break room after the call ended. My coffee was getting cold on the counter. I'd expected Mom to pressure me. I hadn't expected her to impersonate my permission. She hadn't claimed to be me. That would have been easier to name. Instead, she'd done what she always did. She'd presented herself as the person who understood what I would eventually want better than I did. I texted Luke. Terry called. Mom left a message asking him to change the reservation. He called immediately. Did he do it? No. Are you sure? He said nothing changed. I'm going there after work. I'll come. I have to verify it as the named client. I can sit in the car. I thought about it. Okay. We met at my apartment just after 4 and took his car to Herman. Neither of us played music. The sky was gray and there was road construction near the highway exit. We arrived at Stonebridge 10 minutes late. Terry was waiting in the office with his tablet on the desk. He looked exactly as I remembered, navy pullover, reading glasses pushed onto his head. The crack across the tablet screen had spread slightly. Luke stayed near the door. Terry checked my identification and opened the digital booking file. October 17, 2026, he said. Dana Davidson as the named client. $8,000 deposit paid. No authorized changes. Yes. Do you still intend to use the reservation? Yes. Do you authorize a transfer to Brianna Davidson? No. Do you authorize your mother, Brenda Davidson, to make decisions about the reservation? No. He entered a note into the file. Then he turned the tablet so I could see it. It stated that I had appeared in person and confirmed no transfer. Cancellation or client change was authorized. Is that accurate? He asked. Yes. He saved the note. That small action mattered more than I expected. My family had spent over a week treating my answer like a temporary mood. Terry typed it into the file as an instruction. No. He opened the business phone archive on his computer. I'm going to play the message, he said. Before I do, I want you to know I haven't shared it with anyone. All right. He clicked an audio file. Mom's voice came through the computer speaker. Hi, Terry. This is Brenda Davidson. I'm Dana's mother. I'm calling about the October 17th reservation. Dana hasn't agreed to the change yet, but she will. She's upset right now and needs time to come around. We need you to move the reservation to her sister, Brianna, so the planning can continue. Dana's very organized. She can choose another date. Please call me back when that's handled. The message ended. Nobody spoke. Luke shifted behind me, but he didn't say anything. Terry left the audio window open. I asked, when did she leave that? Last night at 8:43. That was after I left my parents' house. Mom had called Stonebridge while I was driving home. I looked at the screen. The voicemail file had a date, time, and her phone number beside it. She said I hadn't agreed. Yes. And still asked you to do it? Yes. Terry's answers were simple. He didn't try to explain my mother to me. I asked, why did you save it? All business messages are retained for a period of time, but I marked this one so it wouldn't be deleted with routine calls. She acknowledged that the named client hadn't consented, then asked me to change the client anyway. Does that happen often? Relatives make requests. They usually back off when we explain the policy. This was different because she asked me to act before contacting you. Luke said, what would have happened if Dana hadn't come in? Nothing. The reservation would have remained in Dana's name. Terry looked at me. The standard condition exists for exactly this reason. People hear family wedding and start treating the contract like shared property. I thought about Brianna telling vendors her family had a reservation. Has anyone else called about my date? Terry checked the file. There was a general inquiry from a woman asking about vendor access and guest capacity. She gave the name Brianna, but she didn't have the account information, so no reservation details were discussed. What did she say? She said she was planning a wedding at Stonebridge. The answering service told her to have the named client contact us. That explained why Brianna was confident Mom needed to handle it. Her own call had gone nowhere. Did she give vendors your name? I asked. I wouldn't know. I showed him the photograph of the save the date. He adjusted his glasses and leaned closer. That's your date and our address. Yes. Did you authorize this? No. Terry handed the phone back. We can't control what she prints. We can only control the reservation. That's all I'm asking you to do. He nodded. If your mother or sister contacts us again, we'll repeat that the named client must appear in person. We won't disclose anything beyond that. I don't want another date held for them. I don't want a special arrangement. I just want my agreement enforced. Understood. That was an important choice. I could have asked Terry to help Brianna find another weekend. A week earlier, I probably would have. I would have treated her problem like the price of protecting my own plans. Instead, I left it where it belonged. Terry closed the booking file. Before we stood, he said, "There's one other thing." My stomach tightened. Your mother asked in the message we received earlier this week whether the October vendor showcase was open to families. When? Monday. She didn't mention a reservation that time. We told her it's a public event, but registered couples get priority for consultations. What date is the showcase, he told me. It was several weeks away. I knew Stonebridge held public showcases. We'd planned to attend one closer to the wedding so Luke could meet florists and rental companies. I hadn't paid attention to the October event. Did she register? I asked. It doesn't require registration for general entry. I thanked him and stood. At the office door, I looked back at the computer. You'll keep the voicemail? Yes. Even if she calls and says it was a misunderstanding? Yes. It's part of the business phone archive. Luke and I walked out to the parking lot. The patio was empty. Workers had stacked chairs under the covered terrace, and someone was testing strings of lights along the brick wall. Luke unlocked the car, but didn't open his door. She said it clearly, he said. I know. She knew you hadn't agreed. I know. You don't have to protect her from that. I looked toward the office window. I'm not going to tell her Terry saved it. Why? Because I want to hear what she says when she doesn't know I heard her. Luke studied my face, then nodded. On the drive back, Mom called. I let it ring once before answering on speaker. Hi, Mom. Are you busy? I'm in the car with Luke. Oh, she clearly didn't like that. What do you need? I asked. I wanted to see if you'd thought any more about the wedding. I have. And my reservation isn't changing. Mom went quiet. Then she said, you could at least talk to the venue before deciding. Have you talked to the venue? There was a pause long enough that Luke glanced at me. I made a general inquiry. What did you ask? I wanted to understand their policies. Did you ask them to move the reservation to Brianna? No, she said it cleanly. I looked through the windshield at the line of brake lights ahead. You didn't leave Terry a message? I called the business. Nobody answered. That wasn't my question. Mom's voice sharpened. If you already know everything, why are you asking me? I wanted to hear your answer. What is that supposed to mean? It means I know you called. She didn't speak. I could hear a television in the background at my parents' house. Finally, she said, I was trying to find out what was possible. You asked him to make the change. I explained the situation. You told him I would come around, because I thought you would. You told me you didn't ask him to move it. I don't remember my exact words. I do. Luke kept his eyes on the road. Mom said, did he call you? Yes. What did he say? He confirmed the reservation is still mine. Another silence. Then she said, I cannot believe you involved a stranger in a private family matter. You called him. I was trying to prevent Brianna from being humiliated, then stop her from mailing the cards. They've already gone out. I sat up straighter. You mailed them? Brianna did. When? This morning. I closed my eyes. The stamps beside the envelopes, Dad's warning, my photograph. They had known the venue hadn't approved anything, and they mailed them anyway. Mom continued, now you need to think very carefully before you make this worse. I didn't print the wrong date. They've gone to over 100 people. That doesn't change my reservation. It changes what's at stake. There it was. The embarrassment was no longer a possible consequence of Brianna's decision. Mom was turning it into pressure on me. I said, Terry has my instructions. What instructions? No changes. You drove all the way there? Yes. With Luke? Yes. Mom made a small sound of disbelief. You're locking your sister out. No, she never had access. I don't even recognize you right now. I looked at Luke. He reached over and pressed the mute button on the steering wheel. You don't have to keep listening, he said. I unmuted the call. Mom, I'm not fixing those cards. She ended the call. A few seconds later, the family group chat began filling with messages. Brianna wrote, "I hope you're happy." Dad wrote, "This has gone far enough." Then a photograph appeared. It showed a blue postal bin filled with cream envelopes. Brianna had taken it at the post office before mailing them. I saved the photograph beside the one of the card. My date was protected. That question had been answered. But now more than 100 people were about to receive a confident announcement that Brianna was getting married at Stonebridge Mill on October 17th. My family had moved the conflict out of the dining room and into the mail. The first message came 2 days later. My aunt texted, "Your mom told me what you're doing for Brianna. That's very generous." I was sitting in my car outside work. I read it 3 times. I called instead of replying. She answered cheerfully. "I just got the card," she said. "They're beautiful." "What did Mom tell you?" There was a small pause. "Just that you and Luke decided to move your wedding." "Did she say where?" "She said you might do spring instead." I assumed Stonebridge was easier for Brianna's guest list. I looked through the windshield at the office parking lot. "When did Mom tell you this?" "Maybe last week." "Is it a secret?" "No. I'm trying to understand what people were told." "Well, I haven't booked a hotel or anything. Don't make travel plans yet." "Why?" "We haven't announced any changes." My aunt became quiet. I could tell she wanted to ask more. I also knew that if I explained everything, Mom would say I had gone around the family trying to embarrass Brianna. So I said, "I'll let you know when Luke and I have an update." "All right." Before we ended the call, she said, "Your mother made it sound settled." I know. I wrote down exactly what she had told me. That afternoon, 2 more relatives sent similar messages. One said it was sweet of me to let Brianna use the place. The other wanted to know whether Luke and I had chosen a new date. I answered both with the same sentence. We haven't changed our plans. Neither asked what that meant. By Thursday, I realized Mom had given different versions to different people. Some believed Luke and I were moving to spring. One thought we'd found another venue closer to St. Louis. Another believed we were considering a private ceremony. All the stories did the same job. They removed me from October 17th without requiring me to agree. I opened a note on my phone and listed every version. Luke watched me type while we ate dinner. "What are you going to do with that?" he asked. "I don't know. You know the reservation is safe. This isn't only about the reservation anymore." He set down his fork. "What is it about?" "They're telling people I volunteered, then correct them. If I call everyone, Mom will say I'm trying to humiliate Brianna. Your mother is counting on that." "I know." Luke waited. I said, "I need to find out how far Brianna has gone. You already know she mailed the cards. She said she talked to vendors. I need to know what that means. Ask her. She won't tell me. Ask anyway." So I did. I called Brianna after dinner. She rejected the call, then texted, "What?" I wrote, "I need the list of vendors you contacted using Stonebridge on October 17th. She called immediately. "You don't need anything from me. If you gave vendors my reservation information, I need to know. I didn't give them your information. You told them you had the venue. My family does have it." "No, I have it." She made a frustrated sound. "You're obsessed with saying that because you keep pretending it isn't true. I contacted a florist, a baker, and 2 photographers. Happy? Did you sign anything? That's none of your business. It becomes my business if you use my date and venue. I didn't use your name. That's not what I asked." Brianna went quiet. I stood from the table and walked into the living room. Luke stayed where he was. "Did you pay anyone?" I asked. "We're still discussing options. Did you tell them the reservation was confirmed?" "Mom said it would be." "That's still not an answer." "Why are you doing this?" "I'm trying to stop you from creating a bigger problem." "No, you're enjoying it." "Enjoying what?" "Having something I want." I looked down at the carpet. That was the first time she said it plainly. Not something we both wanted, something she wanted, which meant my possession of it felt unfair. "Brianna, when did you first decide on Stonebridge?" "After I saw your pictures." "Before you got engaged?" "No." Before you ordered the cards? Obviously. Did you ever plan to ask me yourself? I thought Mom could explain it better. Explain what? Why it made sense. It doesn't make sense for me. You had a whole year to plan. I'm trying to do everything quickly. That's your choice. My fiancé's family doesn't want to wait. Then choose an available date. She lowered her voice. We're handling it at the showcase. I stopped walking. What does that mean? You'll find out. No, tell me now. Mom wants everyone to meet there. Terry can explain the options in person and we can get past this. Terry already explained the option. He talked to you alone. He owns the venue. You always do that. Do what? Get to people first and make everything sound official. I almost reminded her that I had signed the official agreement a year earlier. Instead, I asked another question. Who is everyone? She hesitated. Just family and some people involved in the wedding. What people? I told you, vendors. You invited vendors to watch Mom pressure me. That's not what's happening. Then what is happening? It's a public showcase. Mom said there are announcements at the beginning. We can clear it up without another private argument. The plan came into focus. Mom didn't want Terry to explain the policy to them. She wanted me standing in front of relatives and vendors when she asked again. She believed I wouldn't refuse if Brianna's embarrassment became immediate and public. Has Mom told people the transfer will be announced there? I'm not discussing this with you if you're going to twist everything. I'm asking what she said. She said we'd finally have a reason to celebrate. That's not an answer. It's all you're getting. Brianna ended the call. Luke looked up from the dining table. What happened? They're planning to use the showcase. For what? To pressure me in front of everyone. Are you sure? Brianna said Mom wants an announcement. He leaned back. Does Terry know? I'm going to ask. The next morning, I called Stonebridge. Terry answered himself. I'm sorry to keep bothering you, I said. You're not bothering me. Has my mother contacted you about the vendor showcase? He was quiet for a moment. Yes. What did she ask? She wanted to know how the opening announcements work. Did she say why? She said there might be a family update involving one of our reserved dates. I closed my office door. What did you tell her? I told her the welcome remarks cover schedules, vendor locations, and safety information. We don't announce personal changes for attending couples. Did she ask you to? She asked whether she could say a few words. And? I said I would need to know what she intended to say. What did she tell you? That two sisters had resolved a scheduling issue. I sat down. That hasn't happened. I understand. Did she mention me by name? Not in that conversation. What else did she ask? Whether I would be present. Of course she did. Mom wanted Terry there. She wanted the owner to watch while she described the transfer as finished. If he didn't interrupt, she could treat his silence as acceptance. If he did, she could act surprised and turn to me for immediate rescue. Will you be there? I asked. Yes, I open every showcase. Does my mother know that? I told her. I rubbed my forehead. Terry said, Dana, the reservation status won't change at the showcase. I know. If anyone makes an inaccurate announcement, I can correct the venue information. I looked at my closed office door. Would you? If someone publicly claims control of a date they don't control? Yes, that was useful. It was also more exposure than I had expected. Until then, I'd imagined I could keep the contract separate from the family fight. Terry would protect the reservation quietly. Mom and Brianna would eventually run out of ways to push. They weren't running out. They were building an audience. Has Brianna contacted the venue again? I asked. She called yesterday about vendor consultations. What did you tell her? That consultations don't confirm a reservation. Did she register for any? The vendors manage their own lists. We don't see every appointment. I thanked him. Before we ended the call, Terry said, Would you like me to deny your mother permission to speak? I considered it. That would have been the easiest choice. Terry could stop the announcement before it happened. My family would complain, but the conflict would stay private. Then I thought about the cards, the different stories, the way Mom had described a decision I never made. If she tells you what she intends to announce, let me know, I said. But don't change the showcase because of us. All right. I ended the call and sat there for several minutes. My objective had changed. I wasn't trying to convince my family to accept my answer anymore. They understood it. They simply believed enough pressure would change it. That afternoon, Mom called. You spoke to Brianna? Yes, she was very upset. She told me about the showcase. Mom's voice softened. Good. Then you know we're trying to give everyone a chance to sit down calmly. At a public event, it isn't public in the way you're making it sound. It's mostly couples and vendors, and relatives you invited. Family members are allowed. What are you planning to announce? Nothing you don't already know. That isn't an answer. She sighed. I want Terry to explain how we can move forward. He already explained it. To you, the agreement is with me. You keep hiding behind paperwork. I'm standing behind the reservation I paid for. Brianna has sent her cards. You told her to send them. I didn't force her. You told her I would give in. Mom was silent. I continued. You also told relatives I had moved my wedding. I said you were considering options. You said different things to different people. Her tone changed. Who have you been calling? One person called me. Who? That doesn't matter. It matters if you're creating confusion. I nearly laughed. I'm creating confusion? You know what I mean. Yes, I said. I finally do. She ended the call a few seconds later. That evening, Dad sent a message asking me not to contact more relatives. I hadn't planned to. I had what I needed. Mom's reaction confirmed she knew the stories wouldn't hold if people compared them. The next day, Brianna posted the showcase information in the family group chat. Mom thought it would be nice if everyone came. Below the message was a photograph from Stonebridge's website. The brick patio was lit with strings of warm lights. A line of text invited couples to meet participating vendors. Then Brianna added, "We'll have something important to share at the beginning." Mom reacted with a heart. Dad wrote, "Looking forward to getting this resolved." I didn't respond. I opened my calendar and entered the showcase date. Until that moment, I'd been deciding whether to go. Now I understood that if I stayed away, Mom would announce the transfer without me and call my absence agreement. I marked the event as confirmed. The following Saturday, I stood in a bridal shop fitting room with 6 pins stuck along the side of my dress and watched the time on my phone move past 11. Mom was supposed to meet me at 10:30. At 10:45, I texted, "Are you close?" She didn't answer. The woman doing the alterations asked whether we should wait before discussing the hem. "No," I said. "We can keep going." She knelt near my feet and folded the fabric inward. "Are you wearing the same shoes on the wedding day?" "Yes." "Good. Hold still for me." I held still. At 11:12, Mom finally sent a message. "I'm not coming. I can't sit through wedding things while you're refusing to consider what this is doing to Brianna." I read it twice. The woman looked up. "Everything okay?" "Yes." She returned to the hem. I locked my phone and placed it on the little bench beside my clothes. Mom had asked to come to that appointment. When I bought the dress, she said she wanted to be part of the alterations because my grandmother had gone with her before she married Dad. She'd told me to schedule it on a Saturday, so she wouldn't have to rush. I had pictured us choosing the sleeve length together. I'd pictured lunch afterward, nothing elaborate. Just a normal afternoon where I got to be the daughter getting married. Instead, I stood on a carpeted platform under bright lights, while a stranger asked whether I preferred the waist slightly tighter. "What do you think?" I asked. She stepped back. "I think half an inch would sit better." "Then let's do that." She marked it with chalk. When I changed back into my clothes, I didn't reply to Mom. I paid the alteration charge, confirmed the next appointment, and walked outside. It was warm for the season. I sat in my car with the air conditioner running and called Dad. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Dana, did you know Mom wasn't coming today?" He paused. "She said she might stay home. She didn't tell me until 40 minutes after the appointment started. She's upset. So am I. I understand." "No, Dad." You keep saying that, then asking me to absorb whatever Mom and Brianna do next. I didn't ask you to absorb anything. You asked me to reconsider. You asked me not to contact relatives. You asked me to think about the family. Those aren't unreasonable things. Did you ask Mom not to call my venue? Silence. Did you ask Brianna not to mail the cards? He cleared his throat. Those things already happened, so you only ask me to stop things. Because I'm talking to you right now. That isn't why. He didn't respond. I looked through the windshield at a row of display windows. Inside the shop, another woman had stepped onto the fitting platform. 2 people were standing with her, smiling and taking pictures. I asked, "Are you and Mom coming to my wedding?" "Of course. Does Mom know that? Don't do this." "I'm asking. She's emotional right now." "Will she come if I keep the date?" Dad sighed. "Your mother doesn't respond well to ultimatums. I didn't give her one. You're asking me to speak for her. She spoke for me to the venue. That's different." "How?" "She was trying to solve a problem." I closed my eyes. "My wedding is not the problem. I didn't say it was. You keep treating it like the movable piece." Dad's voice grew firmer. "Dana, we love you. Nobody is trying to take anything away from you. Mom took herself out of my appointment to punish me. She didn't want to pretend everything was normal. Then tell her not to ask me for normal when she needs something." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done carrying tables after she lies to me." He was quiet long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Finally, he said, "You've changed." "I know." It was the first time I didn't hear that as an accusation. I ended the call and drove home. Luke was assembling a shelf in my living room. The shelf had arrived 2 weeks earlier, but we'd left the box against the wall because every free evening had been taken over by calls, screenshots, and family messages. He looked at my face and put down the screwdriver. "She didn't come?" "No." He sat beside me on the couch. I told him what Mom wrote and what Dad said. Luke listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked, "Do you still want them at the wedding?" "Yes." The answer came quickly. I looked down at my hands. "That's what makes this work," I said. "They know I want them there. Wanting them there isn't weakness. It feels like it. It isn't. But you can't buy their attendance with our date." "I know." He reached for the screwdriver again, then stopped. "What does keeping the date look like if they spend the next few months punishing you for it?" "I don't know. We should figure that out." I leaned back against the couch. Until then, I'd treated the reservation as the finish line. If Stonebridge kept my name on October 17th, I won. Brianna would choose another date. Mom would be angry for a while, and eventually everyone would move on. The dress appointment showed me the larger cost. They could fail to take the venue and still make me pay for keeping it. They could withdraw from every part of my wedding, tell relatives I caused the conflict, and wait for me to decide the date wasn't worth losing my place in the family. My original goal wasn't enough. I didn't only need to keep the reservation. I needed to stop participating in the story where my family's behavior remained private and my refusal became the public offense. If you've ever had to stop earning your place in a family, leave the word enough in the comments. Luke finished the shelf while I opened the wedding folder. There were notes from early planning meetings. Mom's handwriting appeared beside flowers, hotel rooms, and rehearsal dinner ideas. She'd written, "Ask Brianna what she likes," beside the color samples. I hadn't noticed it at the time. There was nothing beside those samples asking what I liked. I closed the folder. My phone rang. Mom's name appeared on the screen. I considered ignoring it, then answered. "What do you need?" Her voice was cool. 3 of Brianna's cards came back because the addresses were wrong. I almost asked why she was telling me. Then I remembered the family address spreadsheet. I had created it for Dad's birthday dinner. Mom used it for holiday cards and reunion invitations. Everyone called it Dana's list, even though it contained their relatives. "Which addresses?" I asked. Mom named 3 people. 1 had moved. 1 apartment number was missing. The 3rd address had been wrong for years. "I don't have the updated information," I said. "You usually keep track of that." Not anymore. Well, can you contact them? No. Mom paused. It would take you 5 minutes. Then it'll take Brianna 5 minutes. She's working on vendor appointments. So am I. Your wedding is already planned. No, it isn't. You know what I mean? Yes, you mean my time is available. That isn't what I said. It's what you called for. Mom's voice tightened. I thought you might want to prevent more confusion. I told you not to mail the cards, so now you're going to punish relatives by letting them miss the wedding? They're Brianna's guests. She can find their addresses. Dana, this attitude is getting ugly. I looked at the half-built shelf and the open wedding folder. Did you call to apologize for missing my appointment? She went silent. I waited. Finally, she said, I explained why I couldn't come. No, you told me why you chose not to. I'm not going to apologize for having feelings. I didn't ask you to apologize for a feeling. Everything with you is becoming a test. I asked one question. Mom lowered her voice. I don't know how we raise someone who can be this rigid. I didn't answer. A few weeks earlier, that sentence would have kept me awake. I would have searched through every conversation, looking for the point where I could have been more patient. This time, I heard the request underneath it. Become useful again. Brianna can update her own addresses, I said. Mom ended the call. Luke looked over. What did she want? Help fixing the cards. He stared at me. After she skipped your appointment? Yes. Did you help? No. He picked up the screwdriver. Good. The word landed harder than praise should have. It wasn't because I needed Luke's permission. It was because I'd finally completed a family conversation without volunteering for the cleanup. That night, Brianna sent me an email. The subject line was vendor list. For a second, I thought she had decided to answer my questions. Then I opened it. She had attached the names of the florist, baker, and photographers she wanted to meet at the showcase. Beneath the list, she wrote, Since you're insisting on being involved, you can tell them the venue situation is being finalized. I read the sentence aloud to Luke. He said, She wants you to confirm her story. She wants me to do what I always do. Make the problem look organized. I replied with one sentence. I will not contact vendors for your wedding. Brianna responded less than a minute later. You're already talking to Terry behind our backs. I typed. Terry called me because Mom tried to change my reservation. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Mom was helping. She told him I hadn't agreed. Brianna replied, She said you would. She was wrong. This time, Brianna didn't answer. The next morning, Dad sent a long message. He said Mom had barely slept. He said Brianna felt attacked. He said the showcase was supposed to be a positive family day and asked me not to arrive looking for a fight. I replied, I'm not bringing a fight. I'm bringing my answer. He didn't respond. Later that day, Terry emailed the standard showcase schedule. The message went to every reserved couple. The doors would open in the late morning. Welcome remarks would begin 20 minutes later. Vendors would then start their consultations. At the bottom, Terry had added a short personal note to me. Your reservation remains unchanged. Please let me know if you need a private meeting before the event. I read it twice. A private meeting would have been safer. I could arrive early, ask Terry to stop Mom's announcement, and leave before my family appeared. I could protect the date without exposing anything. That was the solution I would have chosen before the dress appointment. I wrote back, Thank you. I don't need you to prevent anyone from speaking. If my reservation is discussed, please state the policy accurately. His reply came a few minutes later. I will. I printed the email and placed it inside the wedding folder. It didn't add a new right or change the agreement. It simply confirmed that Terry understood what I was asking him to do. That evening, I called Mom. She answered cautiously. What is it? I'll be at the showcase. Her voice warmed immediately. Good. I knew once you had time, you'd see why this was better. I didn't say that. The warmth disappeared. Then why are you coming? Because you're planning to discuss my reservation. We're planning to resolve it. Those aren't the same thing. Mom sighed. Please don't embarrass your sister. I looked at the blue bowl above my refrigerator. I won't say anything untrue. That isn't what I asked. I know. After the call, I added the showcase schedule to the front of my folder. Keeping the date was still important, but it was no longer my definition of victory. Victory meant my family would finally have to own the requests they kept assigning to me. The next morning, I created a new group chat with Mom, Dad, and Brianna. I named it October 17th. Then I wrote, "From now on, anything about my reservation goes here. I'm not having separate conversations where everyone gets a different version." Mom called me immediately. I let it ring. She called again. I wrote in the chat, "Please type what you want to say." Dad replied, "This is unnecessary." I wrote, "Then there won't be much to discuss." Brianna sent, "You're treating us like criminals." "No, I'm making sure we all hear the same words." Mom finally typed, "The showcase is an opportunity for everyone to sit down and discuss a fair solution." I replied, "Are you planning to announce that I transferred the date?" The typing indicator appeared beneath her name. It disappeared, then returned. "We are planning to explain that the family has found a solution. I haven't agreed to a solution." Brianna wrote, "We know." Mom deleted a message before I could read it. Then she wrote, "No final wording has been decided." I took a screenshot. It wasn't the kind of proof that changed a reservation. It didn't need to be. The useful part was that Brianna had admitted in front of both parents that everyone knew I hadn't agreed. Dad wrote, "Can we please talk like adults?" I replied, "Yes." "Is anyone planning to tell relatives or vendors that the date has been transferred before I authorize it?" Nobody answered. I waited 10 minutes. Then I wrote, "I'll take the silence as yes." Dad called. I let it ring. A minute later, he typed, "Your mother would like you to stop making accusations." I replied, "That wasn't an accusation. It was a question." Brianna left the chat. Mom wrote, "Look what you're doing to your sister." I didn't respond. For the rest of the day, every call from them went unanswered. When Dad left a voicemail asking me to call back, I wrote in the group that I was available there. It felt rude at first. That was how strong the old habit was. I had been taught that refusing a private conversation meant I was unwilling to solve the problem. Private conversations were where the problem survived. Mom could tell me Brianna was only exploring options. She could tell Brianna I was about to surrender. She could tell Dad she had never asked Terry to make a change. As long as those statements stayed in separate rooms, nobody had to admit they didn't match. The group chat closed those rooms. That evening, Brianna rejoined. She wrote, "Since Dana wants everything documented, she should confirm she's coming to the showcase. I'm coming. Are you going to cooperate?" I'm going to answer accurately. That means no. Yes. Mom wrote, "Dana, please don't arrive with a folder and turn this into a performance." I looked at the wedding folder on my table. I hadn't told her I printed anything. "I'm attending a vendor showcase for the venue I reserved," I wrote. Dad replied, "And Brianna? She is welcome to attend the public event." Brianna sent, "How generous." I put the phone down. Luke was making sandwiches in the kitchen. "How's the family summit?" he asked. Brianna left, came back, and called me generous. So, productive. Actually, yes. I showed him the messages. He read them slowly. They admitted they know you didn't agree. They did. Do they realize that? Brianna might. Mom thinks the problem is the way I'm asking. Luke handed the phone back. "What's next?" "I register us for the showcase. We're already allowed in. I want our names on the couple list. I want our vendor appointments confirmed. I don't want to spend the day reacting to whatever they arranged." We opened the showcase page on his laptop. Reserved couples could request 3 consultation times. Luke wanted to speak with a rental company about chairs. I wanted to meet the florist we'd been considering and confirm the layout with our caterer. The florist was the same one on Brianna's list. I stopped when I saw the name. Luke noticed. "Do you want to choose someone else?" "No. Are you sure? She doesn't get to make every normal part of planning feel contaminated." I selected a consultation time under my name. The form asked for the reserved date. I entered October 17th. We chose the other 2 appointments and submitted the request. A confirmation email arrived a few minutes later. Dana Davidson and Luke, reserved couple. October 17th, 2026. 3 appointments confirmed. I forwarded the email to Terry with a short note asking whether we needed anything besides identification at check-in. He replied the next morning, "You're confirmed. I'll have your couple materials ready at the front desk." That was the first practical thing Luke and I had completed for our own wedding in weeks. The showcase had been something Mom was using against me. Registering changed that. I had a schedule, a reason to be there, and work to do that had nothing to do with Brianna. Mom noticed the same day. She wrote in the group chat, "Did you take the florist appointment Brianna wanted?" I stared at the message. The consultation list wasn't public. The florist must have contacted Brianna after receiving my booking request. I replied, "I scheduled a consultation for my wedding. She was already speaking with them. She doesn't have an appointment on my behalf. Not everything is about being on your behalf. It's the florist Luke and I were considering before Brianna got engaged." Brianna wrote, "You only booked them because you saw my list. I had their information in my wedding folder. That's convenient." I took a photograph of the florist's brochure. Mom's handwritten note was visible on the corner. She had circled an arrangement months earlier. I posted the photograph. Brianna didn't answer. Dad wrote, "Okay, that seems clear." It was a small sentence, but it was the first time he had acknowledged a fact without immediately turning it into a reason I should yield. Mom called him. I knew because the typing indicator beneath his name disappeared, and a few minutes later he wrote, "Still, it would be considerate to let Brianna have the earlier time." I smiled without meaning to. Luke looked over from the couch. "What?" For about 3 minutes, Dad said something clear. "New record?" "Possibly." I didn't give up the appointment. The florist emailed later that afternoon to confirm guest count and color preferences. There was no mention of Brianna. I answered the questions and copied Luke. Then I added another rule for myself. I wouldn't discuss Brianna with vendors unless she made a false claim in front of them. I wasn't going to campaign against her. I wasn't going to arrive early and warn everyone about my family. I would let them see what actually happened. On Sunday, Dad asked if Luke and I would come to lunch. He asked in the group chat, which told me the new system was working. I replied, "We can come for an hour." Mom wrote, "No wedding discussion. That's fine." At my parents' house, the dining room sideboard was still covered with Brianna's card supplies. The cream boxes were gone, but returned envelopes had been stacked near the fruit bowl. Mom served chicken salad and rolls. Nobody mentioned Stonebridge during the first 20 minutes. Then Brianna arrived without knocking. She looked at Luke and me. I thought this was family lunch. Luke stopped spreading mustard on a roll. Dad said, "Luke is family." Brianna placed her purse on a chair. Good to know where the line is. Mom brought her a plate. The conversation moved to Dad's car, then a leak under the kitchen sink. I knew where the shutoff valve was because I'd helped him replace the faucet. When he started describing the leak, everyone looked at me. I took a bite of my sandwich. Dad asked, "Do you think it's the supply line?" "Maybe." "Would you look before you leave?" I almost said yes. The word reached the back of my teeth. Then I said, "You should call a plumber if you're not sure." Dad looked surprised. "It would take 2 seconds for you to look. I don't want to start taking it apart. You don't have to take anything apart. Then you can look." Brianna laughed. "This is what she's doing now. She's refusing everything." Dad pushed his chair back. "I can look at my own sink." He went into the kitchen. A minute later, we heard the cabinet doors open. Mom stared at me. "Was that necessary? He said he can do it. You know more about those things." "I know because I looked them up." Brianna said, "Congratulations. You can use the internet." Dad returned with his phone in one hand. "The connection is loose," he said. I tightened it. "Good," I said. He sat down again. For once, a small household problem had existed without automatically becoming mine. Dad checked it. He fixed it. The room didn't collapse. Mom looked more bothered by that than he did. After lunch, Brianna carried her plate to the counter and left it there. I carried mine to the dishwasher, put it inside, and stopped. There were 6 other dishes stacked beside the sink. I left them. Mom followed us to the front hall. She said, "I hope you're pleased with yourself." "I had lunch. You made everything uncomfortable. I didn't mention the wedding. You didn't have to." Luke picked up our coats. Dad came out of the kitchen. "Let it go, Brenda." Mom turned toward him. "What?" "It was a loose connection. I fixed it. I'm not talking about the sink." "I know. Nobody said anything after that." Luke and I left. In the car, he said, "Your dad noticed." "Yes." "Think it'll last?" "No." But I'd seen the possibility. When I stopped doing the assigned task, someone else did it. That night, Mom didn't write in the group chat. She didn't call me either. She called Luke. He was sitting beside me when his phone lit up with her name. We looked at each other. "Do you want me to answer?" he asked. "Yes." He put the call on speaker. "Hi, Brenda." Her voice was warm. "Luke, I'm sorry to bother you. I was hoping we could talk privately." Luke glanced at me before answering. "Dana's here with me." Mom paused. "I was hoping to speak with you alone. I don't keep wedding conversations from Dana. This isn't about the wedding." Luke looked at the phone. "Then what's it about?" "It's about what all of this is doing to her." I stayed quiet. Mom continued. "She's not acting like herself. She's shutting people out, refusing to talk on the phone, documenting every little thing. She's asking you to stop changing the story. That's exactly the kind of language I mean." "What kind?" "Accusatory." Luke leaned forward. "Brenda, you called the venue and asked them to change Dana's reservation after she said no. I was asking what could be done. You asked them to do it. You weren't part of that conversation. Neither was Dana. That was the problem." Mom went silent. I watched Luke's face. He wasn't angry. He sounded like he was confirming the time of an appointment. That made it harder for her to turn the call into a fight. She said, "I'm concerned that Dana is letting one date damage her relationship with her family." Luke answered, "The date isn't doing that. You haven't known her as long as we have." "No, I know her now." "That's a very clever answer. It's just an answer." Mom changed direction. "Would moving the wedding actually hurt you?" "Yes." "How?" "It's our wedding. You could have another date. So could Brianna." Mom gave a short, frustrated breath. "I thought you might be able to look at this without all the childhood baggage." I felt that sentence in my chest. Luke's voice stayed even. "What childhood baggage? Dana has always believed Brianna got more attention. Did she? That's not a fair question. It's the subject you brought up." Mom tried again. "She's using this to settle old scores. No, she's using the venue on the date she paid for. You're encouraging her. I agree with her. There's a difference. Not here." Mom became quiet. Then she said, "If Dana goes to that showcase intending to embarrass Brianna, there will be consequences." Luke looked at me. "What consequences? She knows." "No, she doesn't." "Be clear." Mom didn't answer directly. "I won't watch one daughter publicly humiliate the other." Luke said, "Then tell Brianna not to make a false announcement. I'm not discussing this with you if you've already taken sides. You called me." Mom ended the call. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then Luke placed his phone on the coffee table. "I'm sorry," I said. "For what?" "She tried to pull you into it. She failed. She'll blame me. She already did." He reached for my hand. "Did you know she thought this was about childhood? I knew she'd say that eventually. Is it?" I considered the question. It's connected. But if Brianna had never done anything like this before, I'd still keep the date. "Then there's your answer." My phone buzzed. Mom had written in the October 17th chat, "Calling my future son-in-law was a mistake. I was worried about Dana, but clearly private concern is no longer respected." I replied, "Luke told you I was present." She wrote, "You should have given us privacy. It was a conversation about me." Dad entered the chat. "Everybody needs to cool down." Brianna wrote, Luke shouldn't be involved in a sister issue. I typed, "He's the groom." No one responded to that. The following afternoon, my aunt sent me a screenshot. "Did you get this?" she asked. It was an email from Mom. The subject line said, "Stonebridge Family Day." Mom had invited relatives to attend the showcase. She described it as a chance to support Brianna and her fiancé while they met vendors and shared an important update about their wedding plans. At the bottom, she wrote, "We hope Dana and Luke will be there with open hearts so both couples can move forward." My name wasn't included in the recipient list. I asked my aunt, "How many people got this?" "I can see about 30 addresses, but some are couples." Did Mom say what the update is? Only that Brianna is confirming something about the wedding. I stared at the screenshot. "Are you going?" I asked. "We were considering it. Your mother made it sound like a celebration. Don't change your plans for it." "Dana, is something wrong?" I had to choose my words carefully. Mom is asking people to attend a discussion that hasn't happened yet. My aunt became quiet. "I don't understand." "I know. I can't explain more right now." "Are you and Luke still getting married?" "Yes." She sounded relieved. "Well, that's what matters." After the call, I forwarded the screenshot to Luke. Then I posted it in the October 17th chat. "How many relatives did you invite?" Mom replied, "It's a public event." That wasn't my question. Dad wrote, "Your mother invited people who received Brianna's card." "Why?" Brianna answered, "Because they support me." I wrote, "Do they know you don't control the reservation?" Mom replied before Brianna could, "They know the family is resolving it." That isn't true. It will be true after the showcase. I looked at that sentence for a long time. Mom still believed the public setting would do what her phone calls hadn't. More people didn't make the request fair. They made my refusal more expensive. I wrote, "I'm asking one last time. What are you planning to announce?" Mom replied, "That you have agreed to let your sister use the date." The words appeared on my screen without any softening around them. I took a screenshot. Then I wrote, "I have not agreed." Brianna responded, "We all know what you've said. Then why announce the opposite? Because Mom believes you won't humiliate me in front of everyone." There it was again. Not that I would change my mind, that I would protect Brianna from the consequences of what they had already told people. Dad wrote, "This is getting out of control." I replied, "You can stop the announcement." He didn't answer. Mom did. "If you contradict us publicly after everything this family has done for you, I will not attend your wedding." I read the message once, then again. Luke called before I could respond. "I saw it," he said. "She put it in writing." "Are you okay?" "I don't know. Do you want me to come over?" "Yes." He arrived 20 minutes later. I was still sitting at the kitchen table with my phone beside the blue bowl. Luke took the chair across from me. "Did your dad say anything?" "No." "Brianna?" "No." The group chat had gone silent after Mom's ultimatum. Luke asked, "Do you believe her?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "So do I." I looked at the wedding folder. The dress appointment had been a warning. This was the actual price. Mom wasn't asking me to choose between two dates. She was asking me to choose between keeping my wedding and having my mother witness it. "What if we change it?" I asked. Luke didn't react right away. "Do you want to?" "No, that wasn't a test. If you want another venue because this one feels ruined, we can talk about it. I still want Stonebridge." "Then we keep it." "What if Mom doesn't come?" "We'll be sad." The simplicity of his answer hurt. He continued, "We won't pretend it doesn't matter. We also won't give her control of the wedding by making her attendance the condition." I rubbed my thumb across the edge of the folder. I could stop the announcement. "You could." I could ask Terry not to let her speak. Nobody hears the lie. Nobody hears the voicemail. Brianna has to pick another date privately. That's still available. And Mom might come to our wedding. Maybe. I looked at him. "You don't think she would?" "I think she'd find another condition." He was probably right. I opened the October 17th chat. Dad had finally written, "Brenda, let's not say things we can't take back." Mom replied. I mean it. Brianna reacted to Mom's message with a heart. I put the phone down. That heart changed something. Brianna knew Mom had threatened to miss my wedding. She didn't ask her to take it back. She approved because it increased the pressure on me. For years, I had told myself Brianna didn't fully understand what our parents were doing. She accepted the help, but maybe she didn't notice what it cost me. Now she had seen the cost and pressed the heart button. I called Dad. He answered quietly. Dana, are you coming to my wedding if I keep the date? This isn't a good time. It's a yes or no question. I don't want to be put in the middle. You're my father. I know. Mom said she won't come. She's upset. She said she means it. Dad breathed into the phone. Can't you give us one night without forcing a decision? You've had weeks. That's not fair. Are you coming? I'm not going anywhere without your mother. It wasn't a direct no, but it was close enough. I said, all right, Dana, don't do anything permanent because people are emotional. I didn't mail the cards. I'm talking about the showcase. I know, you have the venue. Isn't that enough? No. He was quiet. I said, it would have been enough if you had stopped lying about how I kept it. I never lied. You let Mom tell people I gave it away. I was trying to keep things from getting worse. They got worse. Dad asked, what are you planning to do? I'm going to attend. And if Mom makes the announcement, I'll answer. Please don't. Then stop her. He didn't say he would. After the call, I emailed Terry. My mother has told me she intends to announce that I transferred the reservation. She invited relatives and is using the public setting to pressure me. I'm still attending. Terry replied an hour later, I understand. Would you like me to deny her permission to make an announcement? I looked at Luke. This is the last quiet exit, I said. He nodded. You can take it if you want. I thought about Mom missing my dress appointment, Brianna's heart reaction, Dad asking me not to do anything permanent while refusing to stop the event they had created. Then I typed, no. If she states that the reservation was transferred, I want the venue to correct the claim using the existing booking record and the message she left. Terry's reply came a few minutes later. Understood, I'll preserve both. I closed the laptop. Using the leverage meant the truth wouldn't stay inside our family. Mom might miss my wedding. Dad might stay beside her. Relatives might decide I had gone too far. I still entered the showcase time into Luke's phone. We're going, I said. 2 days before the showcase, Terry asked Luke and me to come by after the last afternoon tour. I want everyone clear on what I can and can't do, he said. We met him in the same office where I'd signed the agreement. The whiteboard had been updated with winter events. A box of showcase badges sat on the floor beside his desk. Terry opened my booking file. The note from my last visit was still there. My name remained beside October 17th. Luke was listed as an approved planning contact, but the client control section still belonged only to me. Terry turned the tablet toward us. Nothing has changed, he said. Has anyone tried again? I asked. Your mother called twice. Your sister called once. What did they ask? Your mother asked whether an in-person transfer could happen during the showcase. I told her it could happen only if you requested it. What did she say? That you would. Luke looked at me. Terry continued. Brianna asked whether she could receive a reserved couple badge before the announcement. I told her no. Does she know why? I told her those materials are tied to the booking file. That removed one uncertainty. Brianna wouldn't walk in wearing a badge that made her look like the named client. She could still tell vendors whatever she wanted, but Stonebridge wouldn't place its name behind it. Terry opened the voicemail archive. Mom's message was still marked and saved. The file showed her number, the time, and the full recording. He played the first few seconds, then stopped it. I verified the archive backup this morning, he said. The message is preserved. I asked, can you play it through the main sound system? Yes. Will people understand what they're hearing? The sound will be clear. Luke shifted in his chair. Terry looked at me. I need you to decide what you want me to do. I can simply state that no transfer occurred. I don't need to play the message to enforce the reservation. I knew that. The booking file was enough for Stonebridge. The voicemail mattered because Mom planned to say she believed I had agreed. Without the message, she could tell everyone this had been a misunderstanding between emotional sisters. "What exactly has she asked to announce?" I said. Terry opened an email. She said she wants to thank you for making a family accommodation and introduce Brianna as the October 17th bride. I felt Luke's hand tighten around mine. "Did you approve that?" I told her I couldn't confirm a change that hadn't happened. She said you would confirm it yourself in front of the family. Did you tell her not to speak? I told her any statement about a reservation had to be accurate. That didn't answer the question, I said. No, I didn't ban her from speaking because you asked me not to prevent the announcement. He was right. This part was mine. Terry could have refused Mom access to the microphone. He could have told security not to let her near the front. That would have protected the event and the venue. It wouldn't have exposed the family assignment. It would have let Mom say an unreasonable owner had ruined Brianna's surprise. I don't want the voicemail played just because she thanks me, I said. Terry nodded. I want to answer first. I'll say I didn't authorize a transfer. If she accepts that, stop there. And if she doesn't, if she says Stonebridge accepted the change, correct her. With the booking record? Yes. And the message? Only if she claims she had my permission or acts like she didn't know I refused. Terry wrote the sequence on a yellow notepad. It wasn't a script. It was a limit. Mom still had the opportunity to stop. Even at the microphone, she could hear my answer and sit down. If she did that, the voicemail stayed private. Terry asked, "Do you want a copy of the audio file?" I thought about the family group chat. I could send it before the showcase. I could attach Mom's own voice beneath her ultimatum and let every relative compare the two. That would be easy. It would also turn the voicemail into a weapon before it was needed. No, I said. Keep it in the business archive. Understood. Luke asked, "What happens after the correction?" That depends on them, Terry said. From the venue's position, Dana attends as the reserved client. Brianna attends as a member of the public. If anyone becomes disruptive, I'll end the discussion. He wasn't promising to defend me from my family. He was explaining how he would run his building. That was all I needed from him. Before we left, he handed us our couple materials in a plain envelope. There were 2 name badges, a map of the vendor tables, and our consultation schedule. I put the envelope inside my folder. In the parking lot, Luke said, "You gave her more room than she gave you. I want to know I didn't force it." You didn't. If she stops after I answer, Terry doesn't play anything. Do you think she'll stop? No. He opened the car door for me. Neither do I. Dad was waiting outside my apartment when we got back. He stood beside his car with both hands in his jacket pockets. He looked tired. Luke asked, "Do you want me to stay?" Dad said, "I'd like 5 minutes with Dana." I looked at Luke. "It's okay." He went upstairs and left the building door unlocked for me. Dad and I stood near the curb. A delivery truck idled across the street. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Your mother said you met with Terry. How does she know? She called him after you left." Of course she had. Dad looked toward my building. "You could stay home on Saturday." "No." "Let your mother make the announcement. We can deal with the details afterward. The details are that it isn't true. You don't have to stand there and contradict her. You want me to let her use my silence. I want to get through one day without this family tearing itself apart. She invited people to watch. She thought it would help. It helps her." Dad rubbed his forehead. "What if I tell everyone you're sick? I'm not asking you to lie for me. It gives us time." "For what?" He didn't answer. I asked, "Is Brianna looking at other dates? She says she can't until this is settled." "It is settled, not to her. That isn't my responsibility." Dad's face tightened. There it is again. What? That phrase. Not my responsibility. You've been saying it about everything. Because you made too many things my responsibility. We relied on you. You used me to make Brianna easier. That's a cruel way to describe your family needing you." I looked at him. "Did you need me? Or did you need what I did?" He seemed genuinely hurt. For a second, I wanted to take the question back. That was the old dependence again. If Dad looked wounded, I became responsible for repairing the conversation. I let the silence remain. Finally, he said, "Your mother thinks you have something planned. I plan to tell the truth." "What does that mean?" "It means if she says I transferred the date, I'll say I didn't. Then what? Ask Mom." Dad took one hand from his pocket. "Are you going to show people private messages?" "No. Play recordings?" "I'm not bringing a recording." That was true. Terry held it. Dad watched my face. "If you humiliate your mother, she won't forgive you." I breathed in slowly. She called my venue behind my back. "I know." She admitted I hadn't agreed. "I know she thought she was helping. That isn't the same as permission. I'm asking you to think beyond Saturday." "I am." "Then think about holidays. Think about birthdays. Think about whether you want every gathering to feel like this." The delivery truck pulled away. The street became quiet. Dad wasn't threatening me in the same way Mom had. He was describing what he believed would happen. If I let the truth become public, our family would have to remember it. He wanted me to preserve a future built on nobody saying exactly what had happened. "I don't want gatherings to feel like this," I said. "Then don't go. I'm still going." He looked down. "I don't know how to help you." "I didn't ask you to help me. That's the problem. You won't let anyone help. Stopping Mom would help." Dad shook his head. "You know I can't control her. You expect me to." He looked back at his car. "If you do this, things won't go back to normal." I know. That answer ended the conversation. Dad got into his car and drove away. Upstairs, Luke had placed the Stonebridge envelope on the kitchen table. He didn't ask what Dad said until I took off my coat. "He wants me to stay home," I told him. "Are you?" "No." "Did he threaten not to attend the wedding?" "Not directly." "What did he say?" "That nothing will go back to normal." Luke nodded. "Do you want normal back?" I thought about carrying the tables, the returned cards, Mom calling me for addresses after skipping my dress appointment. No. That night, I rehearsed one sentence in my head. I gave no permission. I said it while brushing my teeth. I said it while putting the wedding folder into my bag. I said it until it sounded like information instead of a defense. Luke and I agreed on a few practical things. We would drive separately from my family. We would stand near the side of the room, not the front. He wouldn't argue with Mom or Brianna. If Terry ended the discussion, we would move to our consultations. If my family followed us or shouted, we would leave. I chose not to contact any of the invited relatives. I didn't call the florist to warn her. I didn't send the screenshots to my aunt. I didn't ask Terry to remove Brianna's vendor appointments. The only fact I prepared to expose was the one tied directly to my reservation. Saturday morning, I dressed in black pants, a cream sweater, and the coat Luke had given me the previous winter. I put my identification and the Stonebridge folder in my bag. Luke arrived with coffee. "You ready?" he asked. "No." "Same." We drove to Herman under a low gray sky. The Stonebridge parking lot was already half full. Couples walked toward the entrance carrying tote bags and folded brochures. Vendor vans were parked near the side terrace. Mom's car was near the front. Brianna had placed a gold ribbon on the antenna. Inside, a volunteer checked our names and handed us the badges Terry had prepared. Mine read Dana, reserved couple. Luke's had the same designation. We walked into the main room. The florist was arranging flowers at her table. The baker had set out small trays of samples. My relatives stood in two groups near the patio doors, talking like they had arrived for a party. Brianna wore a white dress. Mom was standing beside Terry's microphone. She saw me before I reached the first vendor table. Her eyes dropped to my badge. The expression on her face changed for half a second. Then she smiled and walked over. "You came." I said I would. She looked at Luke's badge, then mine again. Those don't mean anything permanent. They identify the reserved couple. Until the announcement. Brianna appeared behind her. The white dress was fitted at the waist and ended just below her knees. She wore gold heels and carried a small clutch. Her fiancé was with her, but he stepped toward a vendor he recognized and didn't join us. Brianna looked at my cream sweater. "You could have dressed up. I'm here for consultations. This is an important day for me. I know what you're planning." Mom glanced toward the relatives near the patio doors. "Keep your voice down." My voice is down. Dad came over carrying 3 cups of coffee. He handed one to Mom and one to Brianna. He didn't bring one for me. "Let's get through the opening," he said. "Then we can talk." "I'm not transferring the date." His shoulders dropped. "Dana. I'm saying it now so nobody can claim they misunderstood later." Mom took a quick sip of coffee. "We're not having this conversation in the middle of the room. That's where you invited everyone." She walked away. Brianna followed her. Dad stayed for a moment. "You still have time to leave," he said. "So do they." He looked at my badge. "Your mother isn't bluffing about the wedding." "I know." Dad returned to them. Luke stood beside me without speaking. I asked, "Are our appointments still confirmed?" He checked the schedule. "Florist first, rentals after that, caterer last." "Good." We walked toward the side of the room. People were still arriving. A few relatives smiled and waved at me, but none came over. My aunt looked from my badge to Brianna's white dress. Brianna didn't have a badge. She had pinned a small gold flower near her shoulder instead. Terry stepped to the microphone just after the scheduled time. He welcomed everyone to Stonebridge and gave ordinary instructions. He pointed out the emergency exits, the restrooms, and the covered terrace. He reminded couples to keep consultations within their assigned times. His voice didn't change when he looked toward me. Then he said, "We'll begin vendor meetings in a few minutes." Mom moved closer to him. She touched his arm and said something I couldn't hear. Terry looked at her, then at me. I nodded once. He stepped away from the microphone. Mom took it. "Before everyone gets started, our family has a happy update." Conversation stopped in sections across the room. Brianna moved beside her. Dad stood a few feet behind them. Mom smiled toward the relatives. "As most of you know, Brianna and her fiancé have been planning quickly. I'm very excited to confirm that they'll be married here at Stonebridge Mill on October 17th. Several people applauded. Brianna smiled and put one hand against her chest. The florist looked down at her appointment sheet. The baker leaned toward the woman beside her and whispered something. Mom waited for the clapping to stop. Then she looked directly at me. This was possible because Dana decided to make another arrangement for her own wedding. The room became quieter. My aunt turned toward me. Mom extended one hand. "Dana, come up here." I didn't move. She kept smiling. "Come on. This is your sister." People began looking between us. Luke stood beside me. Mom said, "Dana has always been the one who can make things work. I know Brianna appreciates what she's done." Brianna nodded. "Yes, I do." I walked forward, but I stopped several feet from the microphone. Mom held it toward me. "Tell everyone," she said. I looked at Brianna. She was smiling, but her eyes were fixed on my face. Then I looked at Mom. I gave no permission. Her hand lowered slightly. Someone near the back coughed. Mom's smile stayed in place. "She means the final paperwork isn't finished." "No," I said. I did not transfer my reservation." Brianna's smile disappeared. Mom moved the microphone closer to her mouth. "We've had some family tension around the details, but the venue has already accepted the change." Terry stepped forward. "No, we haven't." Mom turned toward him. For the first time since taking the microphone, she stopped smiling. "Terry, we discussed this. You left requests. Stonebridge did not approve them." Brianna looked at Mom. "You said it was handled." Mom covered the microphone with her hand. "It is." Terry held out his hand. "Brenda, I need the microphone." She didn't give it to him. "This is a family announcement. It includes a false statement about my business." Dad stepped closer. "Maybe we should take this into the office," Terry said. "The claim was made here." Mom finally handed him the microphone. He faced the room. Stonebridge Mill reservations are non-transferable. The named client must authorize any change in person. Dana Davidson is the named client for October 17th, and she has not authorized a transfer. The room was completely quiet. Brianna turned to me. You went there again? Yes. When? After Mom tried to change it. Mom said I did not try to change anything without her. She wasn't holding the microphone, but she was close enough that people heard. Terry looked at me. I nodded. He walked to the small sound table beside the wall. A laptop was already connected to the main speakers for the showcase music. Mom watched him. What are you doing? Terry opened the saved file. He said, This is the request Stonebridge received from Brenda Davidson after Dana had refused the transfer. Brianna's face went still. Mom stepped toward the table. Terry, that was a private message. It was a business request concerning this reservation. He pressed play. Mom's voice came through every speaker in the room. Hi, Terry. This is Brenda Davidson. I'm Dana's mother. I'm calling about the October 17th reservation. Dana hasn't agreed to the change yet, but she will. She's upset right now and needs time to come around. We need you to move the reservation to her sister Brianna so the planning can continue. Dana's very organized. She can choose another date. Please call me back when that's handled. The recording ended. Nobody moved. Mom looked at the laptop as if she could pull the words back into it. Brianna turned toward her. You knew she didn't agree? Mom said, she was going to. That's not what I asked. I was trying to keep the planning on schedule. Brianna looked around the room. The florist was watching. So were the photographers she had approached. Her fiancé had returned from the vendor table and stood several feet away holding a brochure. He asked, You told me Dana gave us the date. Brianna's face flushed. That's what Mom told me. Mom looked at me. You set this up. I kept my voice low. You left the message. You asked him to play it. After you told everyone the venue accepted the change, you could have corrected me privately. I did, for weeks. Dad put one hand on Mom's shoulder. Brenda, stop. She pulled away from him. My aunt stepped forward. Dana, you never agreed to move your wedding. No, but your mother said you were planning spring. I wasn't. My aunt looked at Mom. Several relatives began whispering. Terry returned to the microphone. To avoid any confusion, the October 17th reservation remains under Dana Davidson's name. Her deposit and scheduled event are secure. Stonebridge has no reservation for Brianna on that date. He didn't sound angry. He sounded like he was correcting a schedule. That made the consequence final. Brianna moved toward him. What about the vendors I'm meeting today? The showcase is public. You may speak with any vendor who has time. I have appointments. You have inquiries. Priority appointments are tied to registered couples. She pointed toward my badge. So she gets them? Dana scheduled them under her reservation. The florist checked her clipboard again. She looked at Brianna. I can still give you general information, but we can't discuss an October 17th Stonebridge setup for your wedding. Brianna's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She turned to me. You took the florist knowing I wanted her. I contacted her before you were engaged. You're enjoying this. No, you brought him here to play that. Terry owns the building. He was already here. Don't act stupid. Luke stepped slightly forward. I touched his arm. He stopped. I said, I told you not to mail the cards. Brianna looked toward the relatives. You wanted this audience. No, Mom did. Mom spoke through clenched teeth. You could have prevented this at any point. I tried. By refusing everything. By answering you. Dad said, this isn't helping. Mom turned on him. You let her do this. I didn't know about the voicemail you knew I called. I didn't know what you said. Brianna looked at him. You knew too? Dad rubbed both hands over his face. I knew your mother was trying to talk to the venue. You let me mail those cards. You'd already printed them. That's not an answer. It was the same sentence I had used with them. For once, Brianna heard how it sounded from the other side. Her fiancé said her name quietly. She looked at him. then away. Terry lowered the microphone. "The showcase needs to continue." Mom stared at him. "That's it? The reservation policy has been explained. What is Brianna supposed to do? Choose an available venue and date. You could make an exception." "No." The word was calm and immediate. Mom looked at me. "Tell him. I'm not authorizing a change. All these people came here for Brianna. They can still attend the showcase." "You know, that isn't what I mean." "Yes," I said. "I know." Terry signaled to the person managing the music. A low instrumental track started through the speakers. Vendors returned to their tables. Conversations restarted slowly. The public moment was over, but nobody in our family moved. Brianna's fiancé asked, "Do we have any venue?" She shook her head. "I thought we had this one." He looked at Mom. Mom said, "We'll find something." Brianna gave a short laugh. "You said that part was done." "We'll handle it. Who is we?" Mom looked at me before she could stop herself. Brianna saw it. "No," she said. "Dana's not helping." It was the first accurate thing Brianna had said all morning. Dad picked up Mom's purse from a chair. "We should go." Brianna looked toward the florist, then at the relatives who had come to celebrate her announcement. "I'm not leaving." Mom said, "Honey." I said, "I'm not leaving. I need to talk to the vendors." The baker approached carefully. "If you have another date in mind, I can check availability." Brianna opened her clutch and took out her phone. "I don't have another date. We can still discuss general pricing." Brianna nodded without looking at her. The practical work had begun immediately. No reservation, no priority schedule. No Dana standing beside her with a list. Mom seemed to realize it at the same time. She said my name. I turned toward her. "You're going to fix those save the dates," she said. "No, you caused this announcement to fall apart. I corrected it. You're splitting hairs. The date is mine." Mom looked around at the relatives. "Are you really going to walk away and leave us with this? My florist appointment starts in 3 minutes. Her face changed. That was the power shift, not the recording by itself, not the people watching. My plans continued. Theirs had to begin again. Luke and I walked toward the florist's table. My aunt moved aside to let us pass. Behind me, I heard Dad asking Brianna how many cards had been mailed. Mom told him that wasn't the first problem. Brianna said it was absolutely the first problem because people had already started booking rooms. None of them called my name again. The florist greeted Luke and me, turned her appointment sheet around, and asked which arrangement we wanted to discuss first. I opened my wedding folder. She asked about colors first. For the next 20 minutes, Luke and I discussed table arrangements, while my family stood near the entrance trying to decide what to do. I could hear pieces of their conversation. Dad wanted a complete guest list. Mom said they needed to call venues before they frightened everyone. Brianna kept asking why nobody had checked whether Stonebridge would allow the transfer. Each time she asked, Mom lowered her voice. The florist showed us 2 kinds of greenery. I chose the simpler one. When our appointment ended, my aunt was waiting nearby. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. Luke went ahead to the rental table. My aunt looked embarrassed. "I believed your mother." "I know. She told me you wanted something smaller in spring." "I know." I repeated it to people. I waited. She said, "I'm sorry." "Thank you." She looked toward Mom. "I should have asked you." "Yes." There wasn't much else to say. She didn't ask me to forgive Mom. She didn't explain that family members sometimes overstep because they care. She admitted the exact thing she had done, and then she left me alone. That mattered. Our other appointments went well. We selected chairs, confirmed the caterer's access time, and collected information about linen rentals. Nobody from my family interrupted us. By the time Luke and I finished, most of the relatives Mom had invited were gone. Brianna was sitting at a vendor table with her phone and a paper calendar. Dad stood beside her, writing down dates. Mom waited near the entrance. When I approached, she said, "I hope it was worth it." I put the folder into my bag. "Did Brianna find another venue? That's all you have to say. I'm not arguing here. You already made your point." Terry made the venue's position clear. Mom's mouth tightened. "You enjoyed making me look dishonest." I didn't make you leave the message. You keep repeating that like it excuses what you did. Dad came over. Brenda, let's go. She ignored him. You could still help your sister find another place. No, you know this area. You have vendor contacts. They're my wedding contacts. There it is. Mine, mine, mine. Yes, I said. My wedding. She looked toward Luke. This family wasn't like this before him. Luke didn't answer. I said, don't blame him. Of course you defend him. He didn't call Stonebridge. Dad touched Mom's elbow. Enough. She pulled away but walked toward the door. Dad looked at me. I'll call you tomorrow. Only if you're not asking me to fix this. He didn't promise. Brianna passed us carrying a stack of brochures. Her eyes were swollen, but she wasn't crying. You got what you wanted, she said. I kept what I booked. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You invited them. Mom invited them. You knew why. She adjusted the brochures against her chest. I didn't know about the voicemail. I know. That stopped her. For the first time, her anger shifted slightly away from me. She looked toward Mom, who was already outside. Then she said, you still could have told me. I told you I never agreed. You didn't tell me Mom lied. I didn't know what she told you until today. Brianna looked down at the brochures. Her fiancé called to her from the entrance. She walked away without saying anything else. The next morning, Dad called at 7:40. I answered because I thought something might be wrong. We need the address spreadsheet, he said. No. Dana, listen first. I'm not giving you a guest project. We have to contact everyone who got a card, then use the mailing list. Brianna used an old version. Half the phone numbers aren't there. Call the relatives you know and ask for the rest. That could take days. Yes. He went quiet. I could hear papers moving on his end. We also need a list of venues within driving distance, he said. Search online. Your mother says you had a comparison sheet. For my wedding. Could you send a blank copy? No. Why not? Because then you'll ask me to fill it in. I'm asking for a blank form. You can make one. Dad sounded exhausted already. It's just columns. Then it'll be easy. He ended the call without saying goodbye. Mom called next. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail saying I was being vindictive and that refusing to share a spreadsheet had nothing to do with protecting my reservation. She was right about one part. The spreadsheet didn't threaten my date. It threatened my role. If I sent it, I would spend the next week comparing capacities, calling venues, and correcting addresses. My family would complain about my attitude while using my work. I deleted the voicemail. For the following several days, the family group chat became a working list. Dad posted names of venues. Brianna replied with available dates. Mom rejected places because the rooms were too small, the drive was too long, or the walls were the wrong color. Nobody asked my opinion in the October 17th chat. I had stopped responding there after the showcase. On Wednesday, Dad posted, "We need decisions, not more options." Brianna replied, "I'm trying." Mom wrote, "Dana could answer one phone call and save us hours." Dad didn't agree with her. He wrote, "Dana said she isn't helping. We need to work with what we have." I read that message twice. It wasn't an apology. It was the first observable boundary he had enforced without making me defend it again. The next weekend, Dad asked to meet me for coffee. I almost said no. Then he wrote, "I'm not asking for wedding help." We met at a small coffee shop near my apartment. He arrived carrying a notebook. Several loose pages stuck out from the top. He placed it on the empty chair beside him. "I've called 11 venues," he said. I waited. 4 never called back. 3 were booked. 2 were too expensive. 1 was too far away, according to your mother. We're seeing the last one tomorrow. That sounds like progress. He gave a tired laugh. It doesn't feel like it. The server brought our coffee. Dad wrapped both hands around his cup. "I didn't know how much of this you did." "Yes, you did." He looked up. "You're right. That surprised me." He continued, "I knew you handled things. I didn't understand how often we handed you a mess with no information and expected you to make it disappear." I didn't help him finish the thought. He said, "I'm sorry." For which part? For asking you to give up the date. For letting the cards go out. For standing there while your mother told everyone something I knew wasn't settled. His apology was specific. I appreciated that. It still didn't repair anything by itself. Why didn't you stop her? I asked. Because I thought you would give in before it mattered. I looked at him. He nodded. I know how that sounds. It sounds honest. I kept telling myself I was staying out of it. Really, I was waiting for you to solve it. Yes. Dad looked down at his coffee. I told your mother to stop calling you about Brianna's wedding. How did she take that? Badly. Will you keep telling her? Yes. I let the answer sit. Then I asked, are you coming to my wedding? Yes. Even if Mom doesn't? His eyes moved toward the window. Yes. That answer cost him something. I could see it. I said, I'm not ready to act like everything is fine. I understand, and I'm not helping with Brianna's replacement. I know. If Mom calls me, I may not answer. He nodded. What do you need from me? Respect the boundary without asking when it ends. All right. We finished our coffee without discussing venues. 2 days later, Brianna posted a photograph in the family chat. It showed a smaller event room with plain white walls and a covered entrance. We're taking this one, she wrote. The available date was later than mine. The room held fewer people than Stonebridge, and several of the vendors she wanted weren't available. Mom responded with a sad face. Dad wrote, It works, and it's available. Let's book it. Brianna replied, We already did. She had made the call herself. That evening, she texted me privately. We found a place. I saw. It isn't what I wanted. I understand. She began typing, stopped, then started again. Dad says I shouldn't ask you to look at the agreement. He's right. I wasn't going to. All right. Another long pause. Then she wrote, Are you still using the florist? Yes. Fine. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't kindness. It was the first conversation we'd had where Brianna heard a boundary and didn't send Mom to change it. Mom remained silent. She didn't apologize for the voicemail, the cards, the dress appointment, or the public announcement. She stopped calling because I stopped answering. When she wrote in the family chat, I read only what concerned my wedding. Luke and I returned to planning. The next alteration appointment was scheduled for the following Saturday. Mom's name was still written beside it in my calendar. I removed it. At the appointment, I went alone. The alterations were finished. I stepped onto the platform, and the woman zipped the dress, checked the hem, and asked me to walk across the room. It fit. I looked at myself in the mirror without wondering what Mom would change. When I came out, Luke was waiting in the parking lot with coffee. He didn't ask to see the dress. He knew I wanted that part saved for the wedding. How did it go? He asked. I'm done. Good done? Good done. He held the passenger door open. For the next few weeks, Dad kept his promise. He didn't ask me about Brianna's venue, guest list, or vendors. He called once because Mom wanted my opinion about the replacement caterer. Before I could answer, he said, Never mind. I shouldn't have asked. Thank you. I'm still getting used to this. So am I. He changed the subject and asked about Luke's car. That was the first test. The second came when Brianna's florist canceled because she couldn't do the later date. Mom posted in the family chat that they needed recommendations. I didn't reply. An hour later, Brianna wrote, I found 3 options. Dad wrote, Send them. Mom didn't mention me. They chose one without my help. My own wedding stayed on schedule. A week before October 17th, Dad called and asked whether he could come to Stonebridge early. What for? I asked. To be your father. I sat at my kitchen table with the seating chart in front of me. Does that include trying to get me alone with Mom? No. Does it include discussing Brianna? No, then you can come. He arrived on time. Mom came with him. She had sent me a message the night before. I will attend quietly. I won't discuss the showcase or Brianna's wedding. There was no apology in it. She didn't say she understood what she had done. She offered behavior, not accountability. I replied, You may attend as a guest. She didn't answer, but she came. She didn't enter the room where I was getting ready. She didn't ask to see the dress before the ceremony. She sat with Dad and spoke politely to Luke's family. The distance hurt. I had wanted a mother beside me that morning. I also knew the version of Mom I wanted wasn't available just because I was wearing a wedding dress. Dad came to the doorway before the ceremony. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thank you." His eyes filled. He didn't ask me to make anything easier for Mom. He offered his arm and waited. Stonebridge looked exactly the way it had when I first stood on the patio and told Luke I was sure. The brick was dark from rain the night before. The florist had used the simple greenery we chose at the showcase. Terry stood near the back entrance checking the room. When he saw me, he smiled. "Everything's ready." That was all he said. There was no speech about contracts, no reference to the voicemail. He had enforced the agreement and now he ran the venue. Dad walked me down the aisle. Mom watched from her seat. Brianna sat beside her in a dark green dress. She didn't smile when I first entered, but she stood with everyone else. Luke looked nervous until I reached him. Then he said quietly, "You made it. So did you." We got married on October 17th. The date felt like ours again. During the reception, Dad danced with me. Mom stayed for dinner and the cake. She didn't approach Terry. She didn't mention what had happened at the showcase. Brianna came over while Luke was speaking with a cousin. "Your flowers look good," she said. "Thank you. I found someone for ours." I heard. "She isn't as expensive." "That's good." Brianna looked around the room. "I understand why you wanted this place." I waited for the rest. For once, there wasn't any. She returned to her table. Mom and Dad left before the dancing ended. Dad hugged me. Mom said, "It was a lovely wedding. Thank you for coming." That was the limit of what we could say honestly. After the wedding, I reduced contact with Mom. I didn't announce it. I stopped making the weekly call. I didn't answer messages that were really assignments. If she asked a direct question about me, I answered. If she called to complain about Brianna's planning, I ended the conversation. She tested the boundary more than once. One afternoon, she asked whether I could make a schedule for the replacement wedding. No, it would keep everyone organized. Then someone involved in the wedding should make it. You're involved. You're her sister. I'm not helping plan. Mom went quiet. Then she said, "Fine." She didn't apologize. She also didn't send Dad after me. That counted as change, even if it wasn't repair. Dad called on his own. Sometimes we met for coffee. He asked about my life before telling me about his. When he needed help with something, he said what it was instead of building a conversation around the request. I didn't always say yes. He learned to hear no without treating it like an injury. Months after the showcase, a cream envelope arrived in my mailbox. For a moment, I thought Brianna had mailed another announcement. It was an invitation to her replacement wedding. The date was later. The venue was the smaller one from the family chat. My name was printed on the envelope without Luke's, which made me laugh because after everything, Brianna had still used the old address list. I texted her. "Luke's name isn't on the invitation." She replied, "Printer mistake. He's invited." Then she wrote, "I hope you'll come." I asked, "As a guest?" "Yes." "No setup, vendor calls, schedule, or cleanup?" There was a long pause. Then she replied, "As a guest." I accepted. 2 weeks before the wedding, Dad sent me a message. "We have the boxes, decorations, and guest list handled. I'm telling you so you don't wonder if we're waiting for you." I wrote, "Thank you." Brianna didn't contact me with a task. Mom called 3 days before the wedding. I almost didn't answer. She said, "I want you to know I'm not asking you to do anything." "All right, we're loading everything Friday. Your father made labels." "Good. He used too much tape. I'm sure it'll hold." Mom gave a small laugh. Then she became quiet. "I handled your wedding badly," she said. It wasn't enough. It was also the closest she had come to naming anything. "Yes," I said. "I thought you would adjust like you always did." "I know. I don't know how to fix that. You respect the boundary. For how long?" "That question doesn't respect it." She breathed out. "All right." We ended the call without pretending we were finished. At Brianna's wedding, the flowers were different from mine. The room was smaller and the white walls looked fine once the tables were set. Luke and I arrived 10 minutes before the ceremony. Dad met us near the entrance. "Your guests," he said. Go sit down. I smiled. We planned to. A stack of unused programs sat crooked on a table. One sign pointed guests toward the wrong door. I noticed both things. I left them alone. Dad corrected the sign when someone asked him. Brianna's fiancé moved the programs. Nobody looked for me. The ceremony started a few minutes late because Mom couldn't find the rings. She found them inside her purse, in the pocket where she had put them for safety. People laughed. Brianna laughed too. Nothing collapsed. At the reception, she came to our table. Thank you for coming, she said. Thank you for inviting us. She looked at Luke. And I'm sorry your name wasn't on the envelope. I recovered, he said. She smiled. Then she looked at me. Dad made the schedule. I heard. It was too detailed. That sounds like Dad. He made everyone initial the setup list. I laughed. Brianna became serious. I kept thinking you'd step in. I know. You didn't. No. She nodded. I think I needed you not to. That wasn't an apology. It was more honest than one would have been at that moment. When the reception ended, I put on my coat. Mom was stacking decorations into a plastic bin. Dad was carrying centerpieces toward the door. Brianna held a box open while her fiancé placed the unused programs inside. Nobody asked me to take anything. I used to believe being needed was the safest form of love. What I needed was a family that could hear no and still leave a place for me. Subscribe if you want more stories like mine, and tell me which city you're watching from. Luke had gone ahead to bring the car closer. I stood near the entrance for a moment, while Dad checked labels against his list. Mom noticed me. Good night, Dana. Good night. Brianna looked up from the box. Text me when you get home. I will. Dad lifted 2 bins and carried them outside. Mom followed with a bag of tablecloths. Brianna returned for the last box. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't reach for a handle. I buttoned my coat and stepped into the cool night. I walked to my car carrying only my coat, while Mom, Dad, and Brianna loaded the replacement weddings boxes themselves.